Good morning. Welcome to What? It's early still. I'm still not used to it. Like, I was so excited Friday was coming, and I'm like, I can do it. Friday is super exciting. It's the last day of the week. I could totally do this. And today I'm just like, all right, let's do this. All right. Wake up, Jimmy. Gotta wake up. We gotta wake up. Gotta wake up. I stayed up a little late last night. Shane gave us his like passcode or whatever to his Hulu, so I found Rick and Morty last night, and that's what I was watching all night was Rick and Morty. So I stayed up too late watching cartoons. Typical me. I feel like a teenager again. But good morning, everyone. Hi, Dolores. Hi, Warren. Yes, please hit the like, share, subscribe. Of course, my cat wakes up and she's horny. It's like all she does. Hit the like, share, and subscribe, please. Helps with the algorithms. If you're already subscribed, just hit the like button. That definitely helps out. So good morning, everyone. I'm trying to wake up. I really, really am. I didn't take my B12 this morning. I think that's probably why. Okay. I'll probably take it this morning when I play my first video because I have not taken my B12. I need to wake up a little bit. So today we have, I decided to go with some more fun stuff. There is a couple of news things that I want to talk over, talk about, but it's not like they're, like one of them is kind of newsy, but it's more reactionary kind of thing. And the other news ones is more, not like politics related or anything like that. One of them is economics related. So I have them all mixed up, so I don't know what order they're going in, but I think what I'm going to do is we'll first start talking about how everybody, or no, sorry, we'll do that one second. We'll start with Megyn Kelly. She did a video yesterday and had an interview talking about how celebrities are narcissistic, and that's what is all over our country, and it's a problem, talking about how they get plastic surgery and stuff. And then Megyn Kelly decides to admit that she gets Botox. So decided we'd kind of poke fun at Megyn Kelly a little bit today. Inflation is another one. I guess that's a big thing about everyone right now. So I decided, instead of continually watching videos and hearing from other people, that we would do our own little research today. So I got some calculators, like some internet website calculators, U.S. inflation calculator, and bankrate.com is the cost of living calculator. So we'll go through, maybe some of you guys can tell me where you live, and then we'll move, have you move over, like in the calculator, have you looking like as if you were to move to California, and see how much higher the rates are for things. I did do a little bit yesterday. I had myself move from like Texas to California, and the rates are absolutely insane. Like just for bananas was up like 17%. So we'll see the cost of living, and we'll look at the U.S. inflation calculator and look at how much the rates have been going up over the last couple of years compared to actual like full U.S. history, and see how much they're just increasing the cost of things instead of actually fighting a recession, which is probably going to be happening. Then next, I want to talk about the creator of Yu-Gi-Oh! Had passed away back in July, but some new information came up about him, and he is actually a hero. So we'll be talking about the creator of Yu-Gi-Oh! I thought Shane might like that. Maybe some anime people might like that one. Then I wanted to talk about who was John Hurly. I watched a video yesterday. I can't stand him sometimes, but I call him Luke Wazowski from We Are Change. He did a little video yesterday about John Hurly And this guy's story is absolutely insane, amazing, sad at the same time. This man stopped a mass shooting, and while he had the mass shooter's gun and was unloading the AR, the police officers assumed that he was the killer and killed this guy. So he's a superhero as well. And then I was going through some YouTubes yesterday. So next thing I want to talk about was something really interesting. So I decided we would go into the history of the Philippines. So apparently the CIA pretended, or they used the idea of vampires in the Philippines to sort of win that war. So I decided that we would check that out, since it's kind of like interesting. It's Halloweeny, has to do with vampires, superstition, and then also go into the history of how the U.S. ended up owning Philippines, and then how they got their freedom as well. Not obviously not completely fully, but you know what I mean. So I thought that was a really interesting one. And then last but not least, to go into the fun stuff of it, I decided we would look at a video called The True Origins of Halloween. So going into what they all stood for, even like, before, right before Samhain, and how all that came to be in the Catholic Church, and just the origin story of it, not just about, like why kids dress up and go trick-or-treating and there's pumpkins. It's actually like the legit history, what they used it for, what the meaning of it was, and how they perceived All Saints Day, All Hallows Day back in those days. So that's what I have for today. Figured we'd do some fun stuff. If you have anything else you want that's actually more interesting than anything I have, you are absolutely more than welcome to send it over my way. I can save some of these for Monday if I need to. They're just fun. Some of the fun ones I can definitely do. So that's what I have for today. Half asleep trying to talk all of this out. Yeah, so that's what we've got for today. I don't have really much else that happened to me yesterday. I literally I played some Fortnite yesterday again with my friends. Uh, did some quests, do like every week Fortnite gets like new quests to do so you can gain XP and get some more stuff in the battle pass. So that's what we did. That's really funny is that like it's we have a little crew that we play with, and it's me, Sally, Josh, and James. So it's 2 girls, 2 guys, and me and Sally are like the ones that kind of just fuck around and usually get us in trouble and get us killed in the game. So it was really funny yesterday. When we were all playing, me and Sally ended up hitting level 100, and the boys are like still at like level 80 and 60 and stuff. So it was really fun yesterday to be like, haha, we're better players than you, but not really, just because I know all the tricks and stuff to get like free XP to get me at a higher level. So it was really fun to play with them. And then, like I said, watched some Rick and Morty last night. I absolutely am so excited to have the Hulu. I cannot wait. I saw all the different things in the Hulu last night, and I can't wait to start some. Like The Handmaid's Tale, I've only seen season 1 of that, so I cannot wait to see the rest of those. That's going to be exciting. The American Horror Stories, I think I've only seen up to the hotel one where Lady Gaga was in. That's the last one I ever saw, so going to be able to see all the new ones, I'm super excited about. I even saw, like, Keeping Up with the Kardashians in there, so I'm, like, a Pete Davidson fan, so I might just watch it just, like, the last season just to see, like, all the Pete Davidson stuff. Maybe just to watch it just to see what's going on. I've never watched a Keeping Up with the Kardashians show before in my entire life, but it just popped up there, and I was like, if I run out of things to watch, I'll just watch anything. I mean, when we were having Netflix, I think I watched The Office, like, 50 times all season. So I can get pretty obsessed with episodes and watch things. So I don't know. We'll see. But I definitely want to see American Horror Stories, and I definitely want to see The Handmaid's Tale. So those are 2 that I'm really excited about getting started on watching. So yeah. Good morning, everyone. Slowly starting to wake up. As you can see, my eyes are starting to open a little bit. So all right, let's get started. Okay, we'll start with the Megyn Kelly. So Megyn Kelly has a show on YouTube, of course, and either yesterday or the day before, she did an interview with a Andrew Sullivan. He's the founding editor of Weekly Dish. They're going to discuss the narcissism displayed by celebrities like Madonna, the Kardashians, and the contrast to how Queen Elizabeth was portrayed in the media, being okay with aging and more. So it's pretty much very face value, very vain conversation. So I figured, yes, The Handmaid's Tale is good but brutal. That's what the first season was really, really, really good. I actually enjoyed the shit out of it. And I watched it like when it first came out. So yeah, I think it was like it first came out during like when Trump was president. So everybody was like, this is gonna happen. This is real. So and then he hired that one lady as like the head of like the teacher or something. And like everybody was saying like the Handmaid's Tale writer, the author of the book, wrote it after that lady. Like got that like the whole idea of the book from that lady. So it's gonna be really good. I can't wait to see it. And every time I see the previews for the new seasons, I'm just like, oh my god, it's getting better. Oh my god, it's getting better. Like I don't even know if the main girl went to Canada yet. I know that she was trying to go to Canada, but I have no idea if she actually made it, because the last season I saw, she was like on her way to Canada, like kidnapped or like sneaking out on an airplane or something, and she got busted. And then that was like the last I ever saw of it. So I cannot wait to see the parts that I haven't seen yet. Good morning, Ghost Art. Good to see you. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for coming by. Everybody, please hit the like button. You don't have to share or subscribe if you're already subscribed. You don't have to share if you don't want to. Just hit that little the little like button. That way, that helps out with the algorithms a lot. And things are doing really great over here. I can't even explain to you how awesome it's been over here. You didn't get a notification? See, I think Holly didn't get a notification yesterday either. So I don't know what's going on. It seems like YouTube is still, it's broken. I was just going to say YouTube still hates me. I uploaded, what was the clip video that I uploaded yesterday? The Pfizer one, and it would not upload. Like I'd upload one right before it and it uploaded to YouTube just fine. And then I would upload that one and it just wouldn't upload. So I was like, all right, well, maybe it's messed up. I got to just stop it. And so I uploaded a different one and it uploaded just perfect. So for some reason, I'm still in the Eye of Sauron, and they don't like me. So I think it was like the way I titled it, like Pfizer knew, or did Pfizer know that it would spread or something like that, and I think they didn't like that. So I just did Pfizer had a meeting with the EU and it didn't go well, and then that went through. So I am super in their eye. They really don't like me. So I'm sorry. That sucks. That's some boo-boo. And I don't even know if I ever see it, because I'm usually already on uh, the video right here on my phone. So I never even know too. I have no clue. I'll figure it out one day, or YouTube can just stop being a bully. That would be nice. Really good news. Got our second email yesterday from Rockfin. It looks like we'll be starting to be content creators soon on there. They are having us fill out some kind of wallet thing. I think Rockfin works with cryptocurrency. So I think that's what they're having us do, is trying to like create some kind of like crypto wallet or something in there. So Shane is doing that today. We're going to be going over that today after I get off this thing today. And then we're going to go through that, try to get us approved and stuff. So that way by Monday, we will be able to go live on Rockfin, which will be fun. No more bullying. I mean, I'm still going to be you on YouTube, but at least they'll be able to bully us one little bit less. So, because, they hate me. Yeah, Pfizer Gate is on its third day of trending. That's probably why they're like trying to hide me, is because of that. Yeah. I wonder, like, is it even like, is it, is even putting Pfizer like on the video title, is getting people in trouble, I wonder. I don't know. Yeah, I put Pfizer met with EU Parliament, ... It didn't go well. So I don't know. I mean, I got 12 views on that. So they shouldn't be like picking on me that much, right? I only got 12 views. It's not like, I don't know, like, like I'm some super celebrity that's like talking to a huge crowd like Andrew Tate or something. I'm just talking about Pfizer. So I don't know. I have no idea what's going on. And my internet's being weird today. So I hope you guys can all keep up and it keeps up with me, because it's looking like even my own live that I'm watching is like really, really laggy. So we'll see how it goes. All right. Let's get started. So I can go take my B12 really quick. Okay. Here it is. And I think she does. Is she going to do some kind of... Okay, no, she isn't. Good. Okay.
Writing recently that narcissism is everywhere. And this is in the wake of the Queen's death. And you were juxtaposing the Queen to this new subset of England and America and the world that is just completely narcissistic and self-obsessed. And that is what leads me to Kim Kardashian. And I don't think that Kim Kardashian is at heart a bad person. I hate what she's come to stand for, what she represents, what kind of an influence she has over our society, and in particular, our little girls, of which I have one. And I've had it with her narcissism and her endless vanity. And I pointed...
Which I completely agree. I mean, I do believe that, yes, they have narcissism. Yes, they have vanity. And congratulations, you have one daughter out of millions of daughters that are in this country. And you think that your opinion is like the gatekeeper of all opinions when it comes to mothers with daughters. Because, I mean, if my kid wants to watch Kim Kardashian and watch the Kardashians, oh, well, that's her. If she wants to enjoy Madonna, oh, well, that's on her. They're like, these are these kids that they're allowed. I understand like not wanting your kid to see like a Nicki Minaj at 5 years old, but that's your job as a parent to not let them see what you're not ready for them to see. These women are grown-ass women living their grown-ass lives, making their own grown-ass decisions, and can literally do whatever the fuck they want. If you don't want your kid to see it, then don't let your kid see it. Plain and simple. You don't need to sit there and bag on other women's freedom of choice just because you don't want your daughter to see something. You're not the gatekeeper of moms.
This out before. Last week, it also came out that she's a rules don't apply to me kind of person because she got pursued for unpaid taxes of like so many of these rich.
Really quick. Hi, Les Bones. Sorry. I put up your YouTube is broken comment and I totally forgot to say hi. I'm telling you, let me take my B12. I'll be fully there soon enough.
People. She just decided the rules would not apply to her. She didn't pay her taxes on a certain portion of income she had, and she was forced by the feds to pay over 7 figures to make the bill correct. The rest of us don't get away with that, right? Neither should she.
What are you talking about? Everything that has to do with filing taxes on your own is trying to find a way to gyp taxes so you don't have to pay as much. Everybody that has them enough, that makes enough money to have to pay taxes every year, absolutely does this. And she can't tell me that she doesn't. She just doesn't want to admit to it.
To go all decked out as she always does to an NFL football game. She lives in California. She goes to an LA Rams, Dallas Cowboys game out there. And the giant jumbo cam found her. What a shock. And they booed her. They booed. Listen. She's on cam.
So that comes with being a celebrity, and especially a celebrity that is very questionable, does questionable things, is very vain, like very, into themselves. They're going to get it. And plus they're at a football game. Like, who goes to football games? Douchebag dudes. So of course they're going to hate her because most of them are incels and could probably never even have a chance with her if they wanted to.
Yeah. So I believe the reason they booed Kim Kardashian is because the country's getting sick of narcissistic, vain, self-promotional, rules do not apply to me type of people.
Speak
like
for
her,
yourself.
like Meghan Markle. And I do think one of the reasons it's in the ether is because the death of the Queen and the reminder of what used to be, what once was, what we used.
So an old hag who has colonized nations and genocided people and kicked others out of their country in the past and doesn't even deserve it. She was born into that shit. Is the reason why people are done with narcissism is because she's dead, so narcissism dies. It doesn't it doesn't make two and two together. It doesn't comprehend in my head. I think she's just coming out for some fluff shit just to make it sound like it. It just, yeah.
To once revere versus this false god of money and materialism and selfie culture and weird decisions on extreme plastic surgery that one refuses to acknowledge, infecting it into the bloodstream of our little ones, and so on.
Most of the time when those celebrities get plastic surgery and they say they don't have it, we all fucking know they do. So why even sit there and say like the celebrities that are getting plastic surgery and not telling people that they are is ruining our children? Like, my kid's not going out there getting plastic surgery. I'm pretty sure your kid's not going out there and getting plastic surgery right now, Megan. So why don't you stop it? Okay. And even if they do in the future, it is their decision to make themselves happy about themselves. If they are not happy with themselves and they want to do that to themselves, why are you going to sit there and tell her that she can't? Why are you being the gatekeeper of what's going to be beautiful and how people feel that themselves is beautiful or not? I just don't understand why these conservatives always do this kind of stuff where they think that they're just the gatekeeper and the queen or king of knowledge on certain topics when they're absolutely not. Leave these people alone. Let them live their lives. Just because you're affected by it, stop fucking looking.
Your thoughts?
Oh, I don't even want to really add anything to that, except have you seen the latest photographs of Madonna?
Oh my God, what's going on with?
So my question is pay attention to this guy because he's sitting here bagging on Madonna. Like, Madonna is like one of the comrades, you know, she's been there for the LGBTQ plus community back in the 80s. She was a huge advocate for AIDS and AIDS rights. So, and he's just sitting here bagging on her. And I have a question. Is he gay? Because my gaydar is going off on this guy. And I thought the LGBTQ plus people loved Madonna. So if he's like a conservative gay guy, I guess that's like my thing or that's what I'm getting from this. So yeah.
With her?
I don't know. I mean, I have to say, you know, I loved Madonna back in the day. And she's an amazing artist. She's done extraordinary things, but I guess what happens is that you become addicted to youth and fame, and there are methods in which you can kind of look younger, in which so many people now they're developing faces that really aren't faces at all. They're masks, and they become permanently fixed on their face. The sort of, you know, the Nancy Pelosi permanently startled look, where you are constantly, your eyes are constantly furiously open, and your skin is incredibly taut, and there comes a point at which, you know, I think of Jared and Ivanka, who, when you at a distance now,
they're sitting there complaining about narcissism and being vain and stuff. But what are you talking about right now? Is that all you see is somebody's face? Because that sounds pretty fucking vain to me. You're literally acting like the person that you're making fun of.
The two faces are becoming exactly indistinguishable because they're both strange human features in a white, bland, wrinkle-free, shape-free soup. And yeah, and then you look at the Queen, you look at someone who had this incredible amount of exposure placed upon her very young. She wasn't even intending to be queen. This happened at because of the abdication of her uncle. And yet she, in 70 years, never said something that drew attention to herself, never engaged in some crass attempt to please people, who kept every single public engagement she was supposed to keep, who lived up to every rule she was supposed to live up to, which is incredibly difficult, to be that public and have not a single opinion of yours be known. Imagine that. 70 years of doing that, the discipline, the service, the humility, actually.
The colonization, the genocide, the better than, the narcissism, the thievery. Come on. He's sitting here saying that like Madonna is the bad one, but the queen is somebody to revere and respect. This is disgusting. Exactly. What a load of shit. Absolutely. But Madonna's the bad one, right?
To realize I'm just here because I happen to have the right genetics and I'm just plonked here on a huge big throne, but I'm going to do my job and I'm going to do it well. And I tell you, when she died and you saw those scenes, it's because so many people deep down, yeah, they'll buy the tabloids and they'll love the celebrity stuff and they will gobble it all up because it's like candy, but they will respect and revere someone who chose a different path. And as long as that...
The queen is not revered and respected, not as much as she used to be. She's horrible, and people were happy that she was gone. Like, you're not even going to talk about the people that were screaming in the crowds about how she's corrupt and shit? Okay.
Sis, and I think William and Charles...
It's a very closed-minded subject between these two.
Then we have a public realm that is not entirely despicable.
Yes, yes.
But also it tells me... These people aren't happy,
that
are
kind
they?
of self-restraint was the queen's level of self-restraint was staggeringly rare. Yes, exactly right. And you wrote, you need only look at those around her, from her husband to her children, to see just how hard it is to lead a life that doesn't wind up in the tabloids or the headlines for the wrong reasons.
Let alone Meghan Markle, who got there for 10 minutes and immediately tried to turn it into some celebrity Hollywood stardom.
You see how he's blaming Meghan Markle for going in there to turn that he said that it's her fault, like it turned into a celebrity circus over there. They fucking were racist. Every single one of those royals were racist. Does nobody remember when Meghan Markle went to I think it was like a Christmas dinner or something with the royal family and like all like the cousins and stuff, and a lady came in with a brooch that had a black lady on it, and it represented like the slavery times, and she wore it right in front of Meghan Markle and was like not even caring. Yeah, exactly. This guy is obviously a Piers Morgan fan. Meghan Markle didn't do shit except for marry a dude that she wanted to be with, and he just so happened to be the Prince of England. Like, she came up. She didn't bring no circus. The fucking royals are goddamn clowns, and they're racist as shit.
Utterly misunderstanding the institution and rightly ejected from it.
Rightly ejected. You hear that? She was rightly ejected. From what I know, her and Harry left. They were like, fuck you, I'm out of here. And they moved to America. Winning for America. Fuck you.
It would be lovely, wouldn't it, if more of our public figures accepted they get old and uglier. That's okay. It's good. We're all going to get there. We need role models of aging as opposed to these role models of panicking. And
that's good.
The other thing that strikes me is also that these people are not happy. If you're constantly changing your face, something inside is not at rest.
And that is not for you to judge. That's not for you to judge. You have no right to sit there and tell a person whether they're internally happy, whether their mental state is good or not. You're not to judge. And you're not to judge their actions that they're taking based off of their mental health. How fucking dare you?
And so I feel pity to some. I feel pity for Madonna. I mean, in some ways, because she seems trapped.
Let me show the
think this is
video
way
so
of being
the
happy.
audience knows what we're talking about. You can watch it on YouTube if you're listening right now in Sirius XM. I'm going to show it now. This is Madonna in this bizarre video, and I don't think there's sound. It's her with a cat looking bizarre. People think she looks like Marilyn Manson in this video. The captions read something to the effect of, if I miss, I'm gay. And she has this big pair of hot pink panties that she tries to hit into a trash can, and she misses by a mile. So people are wondering if she's coming out. Here's the video. She's got the panties, throwing it. She's put on some weight, so she looks very different. We've never seen Madonna anything other than ripped and athletic. Bright pink wig, and her eyebrows are gone. She does look a little like Marilyn Manson.
How fucking dare her? How dare her? How dare she judge what Madonna used to look like and what she does now? How dare her say that Madonna's added some weight and that she used to be ripped and that's how she wants to see her? You are a fucking Karen, Megan Kelly. Jesus Christ. Like, it's disgusting. It's seriously disgusting how she's acting. Who fucking cares what Madonna does with her body? Really? And if she wants to show it off to people, oh well, yes, people have the right to make fun of her and to make fun of her looks. You made a whole fucking show on it. And you guys just wait. This isn't even like, you just wait till she says the things about herself when she sits here and talks about how Madonna's gained some weight and how Madonna has no eyebrows and that how she looks like Marilyn Manson. Oh well. And that she has pink hair. Oh, well, I'm pretty sure Madonna dressed way crazier in the 80s, way crazier than just pink hair. How are you going to say that this pink hair is something new and something gross and something that you don't like to see when Madonna's done this her whole fucking life, dressed weird, acted weird, done stuff. Bring the tartar sauce. Good morning, Yona. Oh, God, you guys are texting up in here. Okay, hold on. Meghan Markle. Yep, Meghan Markle turned down Piers Morgan when she turned him down. This was before Harry. I think Morgan was bitching about it on some show. Yeah, on his own show. Because he was like wanting to take her out for a date and she said no. And then like right after that, she went on a date or she went somewhere and met Harry. And then that's when they started dating. So he felt like he had a chance with her and he lost that chance when she met Harry. Like, a lover scorned or something, like, oh, boo-hoo, sorry, Pierce, but I'm pretty sure she was never interested in you in the first place. So is this guy on Bill Maher's show a bunch? Well, he's definitely a conservative gay man. So Botox fishy face is sexy. Bring the tartar sauce. I don't know. I've never kissed a girl or anything like that has Botox, but I'm not going to sit here and judge it and put it past anybody. If somebody feels like they're not pretty and they want to be pretty and add a little bit here and add a little bit there, by all means, have fun. Get it, girl, slay. Piers 1 imports never had a chance. Yeah. There you go. Madonna needs to shave her head bald and get into a conservatorship. Oh no, that's horrible. Let Madonna live her life.
You know, to your point, Andrew, you can make yourself look a little younger. You know, like I've talked openly, I get Botox and
ta-da! Look at this. She's sitting here talking about all this shit on Madonna. She's talking all this shit on Megyn Kelly. She's talking all this shit on the Kardashians and talking about how the queen is like natural and how looking old is beautiful and that. Bitch, you get Botox. You do it yourself. You have no fucking room to talk. I don't have anything in my body, none of that plastic surgery, none of that stuff, no Botox, no nothing. And I'm not even judging as hard as she is. And she gets this shit. She does it to herself. She's about to say she gets it right here on her forehead or else she'd have a bunch of wrinkles. Fucking hypocrites, dude. So full of hypocrites.
I like the Botox. I mean, I still get I get a little, so I can still do this with my eyebrows, you know, but like if I didn't get it, I'd have a lot more lines in my forehead than I do. I think where people go wrong is trying to look young. You can look a little younger You know, you could shave off, I think, between 5 and 7 years with like taking good care of your skin, staying out of the sun, getting the Botox. But you cannot take off 27 years or you start to look like a freak.
Yes, you can. You can absolutely take off 27 years. You won't look like a freak. You do what you want to do. If you want to take off 27 years, that's what science is for, bitch. Chill the fuck out. You get Botox. You cannot sit there and be the gatekeeper of how much younger somebody gets to choose to look like. You make yourself 6 to 7 years younger, and that's okay. But as soon as the 6 to 7 adds an extra 20 years, that's wrong. Sorry, you don't get to be the judge of that, bitch.
Well, what I'm concerned about is the people who get a face at age 30 and it's the same face when they're 80. You know,
right? That's weird.
There was a great line by George Orwell that said,
yeah,
by
I know.
the age
She's
of
gonna
40,
be fine.
everyone has the face
I just want to make fun
they
of Kelly.
deserve. And because life has wrought its painful path on your face, and that's what it means to be human. We're in a flight from mortality. We're in a flight from pain. We're in a flight for all the discomfort that actually makes you strong. And again, for me, the main thing is pity. Fame is the most overrated thing in our civilization. It is so massively overrated.
I get it. Fame is overrated, but okay. So in the bigger picture of things, when you think about the history of humankind, we're always just trying to make sure that our legacy lives on, whether it could be anything. We just want to make sure that we are not forgotten. Every human feels like that. They just want to make sure they do something to where they're not forgotten before they go. And certain people have it more than others. Certain people, you know, do the fame stuff because of this. Like there's this underlying subconscious feeling in human existence of not wanting to be forgotten. And this is all it is. And that's why there's celebrity culture. That's why there's fame. That's why, you know, there's pop culture and all this, you know, YouTube celebrities, TikTok celebrities. It's all the same underlying subconscious existential human feeling that we have. He's no different. Look at where is he at right now? He's on TV. You guys even said in the audience, he goes on Jon Stewart's show. This guy wants fame just as much as all the rest of them. And Megyn Kelly has her own fucking show named after herself. Tell me that's not vain. Tell me she's not wanting fame as well. She was on Fox News. She was doing all this Trump stuff. Now she's got her own show. Like, how are you going to sit there and tell me that it's disgusting that people want fame and it's a horrible thing that humans have, but you're out here doing it yourself. You're literally repeating it. The fucking hypocrisy. Humans want to be famous and want to have a little bit of fame because there's this legacy that humans want to leave.
It brings generally misery and isolation. And look, I have a mini insight into this because I used to be on TV a lot. I took myself off because I don't want to be in a place where suddenly everyone sees you, in which you can't walk into a room and just be part of the background and observe things. Once you become too famous or too well known, every place you go into is altered. So you never see reality. So you get constantly shut off.
What is he talking about? Everybody's reality is different. What he experiences on his daily life is completely different than what other people's existence is on a daily life. He can't sit there and assume that because they're, you know, celebrities, they deal with a whole nother reality. Yes, they have a lot of yes men. Yes, they have a lot of people licking their boots and kissing their feet. But that's what comes with fame. You get those kind of special treatments because of it. He's just probably jealous because he don't have none of that. I'm pretty freaking sure.
Off the reality, you get constantly shut.
And like I was saying, yes, I forgot what I was talking about. But everybody's reality is different. When, you know, there's always that saying, there's this side, and then there's the truth. So everybody's reality is different. Just because you don't like the reality that these people are getting doesn't mean that they don't deserve this reality.
Shut off from the human interactions you need. You get shut off from criticism, and you get shut off from the past, and you can develop.
They don't. We were just talking about this yesterday about celebrities having to hear things from the past and then having to repeat the apology and stuff. He's such a liar.
As Madonna has, or as many other people have. into masks that are hiding misery, really. Anyway, I hope she's okay, and she's done some wonderful stuff, and it's okay to retire and just go away if you want.
Don't tell her to
It's fine.
retire. What the fuck? Let her do her thing. So she wants to come out as being gay now. Oh well. Oh well. Get over yourself, dude. That whole thing was wild to me. I can't believe that she is just sitting there saying that and he's saying that with no qualms, no feelings of it whatsoever, not even feeling like they said the wrong thing. And then she goes off and does it herself. They complain about fame. They want fame. They're on TV. They're doing it. All of it is just absolutely crazy and disgusting to me. What are you saying, Shane? You will be on Chicago Corner with Jerry at 7:30. So that would be 5:30 my time to discuss something I heard at the National DNC meeting a few weeks ago involving the Illinois governor's race and a fun possible candidate the Dems would like to run. Tune in tonight. Don't want to say too much. Okay, well, Shane's going to be on Chicago Corner tonight. Have fun. Hell yeah. Well, that's good. At least it starts at, what'd you say, 5:30 my time? So that way, because Warren has his show tonight too, but that doesn't start till 9 my time, midnight your time. So you'll be super good. Wants to LARP is gay because it's cool. Yay. If she wants to be gay, let her be gay. That's all right. All right, let's get on to the next one here. We'll do this one since Shane is here. So let me pull this up. All right, so a couple months back, there was the creator of Yu-Gi-Oh! Had passed away by the ocean somewhere. Some people were saying that they didn't understand. Some people were rumoring that he died in a scuba thing. A lot of people couldn't understand what happened to this guy. But recent reports came out that this man is actually a superhero. He did pass, but he saved some people's lives, which is incredible to me. So Yu-Gi-Oh's creator died trying to save these people from drowning. Here is, I believe, the Mermaid's Grotto in Okinawa right here. So back in July, the world learned of the sad passing of Kazuki Takahashi. Man, I already messed that up. I practiced that last night and I still messed it up. The creator of Yu-Gi-Oh! So at the time, his death was recorded by officials as a drowning, but a recent report from the U.S. military's newspaper has provided some extra details, not knowing at the time regarding his heroism. So a story on Stars and Stripes, the Department of Defense's own news service, reports that a U.S. Army officer has been recognized for rescuing 3 people from a riptide at a popular Okinawa dive spot in an episode that apparently killed a well-known Japanese manga artist. So the officer, 49-year-old Major Robert Bourgeot, has been recommended for a soldier's medal for his actions on July 4th, which took place at the Mermaid's Grotto in the village of Okinawa. Okinawa. Bourgeot reportedly spotted 3 swimmers, 2 Japanese civilians, and a fellow U.S. soldier struggling in a dangerous riptide, and while still wearing his running shoes, raced out to rescue them. So the SNS report says that while the riptide alone was dangerous enough, 6-foot waves were also crashing amongst it and quickly caused a whirlpool effect, which began sucking in the stranded swimmers. Bourgeot, a trained scuba diving instructor, was able to bring both civilians to shore and then direct the U.S. soldier to safety as well. So during the rescue, however, several sworn witness statements provided by the Army say that Takahashi also jumped in to help, but onlookers only caught glimpses of him until he disappeared beneath the waves. Jerk. Sorry, my cat. So he's a hero, Bourgeot said. He died trying to save someone else. Takahashi's body was found by the Japanese Coast Guard the next day, floating off the coast of Nago, a city in the northern part of Okinawa. His car was later discovered parked at Mermaid's Grotto. So we will watch this video that this guy shared. His name is Forever World. He says Army soldiers exposes how Yu-Gi-Oh creator really died. All right, let's check this guy out.
It's just sad. This right here is just flat out, straight up heartbreaking to hear. When I saw this came across my timeline, I was like, wow, this is heartbreaking to say the least. In case you don't remember, it was, I believe, back in the summertime, we heard that the author, the creator of Yu-Gi-Oh, Kazuki Takahashi, had passed away. He was apparently found in snorkeling gear, so he had like died by the sea, and a lot of people were, devastated. This is a guy that, revolutionized the anime and manga world, the trading card world, all of that stuff. An icon, a global phenomenon for what he's done and what he contributed to this whole medium and culture or whatnot. And it was kind of just a little bit bizarre. Everybody didn't know what exactly happened. A lot of people were calling it just an accident. Well, according to what just came across right now with this breaking news, apparently the author of Yu-Gi-Oh's death is a lot even sadder than that. Let's read. Tori Station, Okinawa. A U.S. Army officer was recognized for rescuing 3 people from a riptide at a popular Okinawa dive spot in an episode that apparently killed a well-known Japanese manga artist. Major Robert Borgiu, 49, of Missoula Mont, the deputy operations officer for the 10th support group at Tori Station in Yomitan, was nominated by his command last month for the Soldier's Medal for his actions during the July 4th rescue at Mermaid's Grotto in Onna. The medal recognizes acts of heroism not involving actual conflict with an enemy. Kazuki Takahashi, 60, the creator of the popular Japanese manga series Yu-Gi-Oh, attempted to aid Borgeo in the rescue, unbeknownst to the American, and drowned in the process. So I believe Mont was from Montana. A pained Borgeo told Stars and Stripes on October 3rd. You play that what if game a lot, Borgeo said. This guy had a huge impact on the world. Takahashi's body was found 2 days later, about 1,000 feet offshore in Awa, Nago City, a Japan Coast Guard spokesman told Stars and Stripes by phone October 4th. His rental car was later found at Mermaid's Grotto, the spokesman said. The Coast Guard spokesman declined to confirm Takahashi's participation in the rescue attempt. However, his actions that day are detailed in several sworn witness statements provided by the Army. Borgeo, a scuba diving instructor, met a pair of students at Mermaid's Grotto at just after 2 p.m. that day. The conditions were really tough, he said. Borgeo spotted a Japanese woman calling for help. He said she pointed towards her daughter, 11, and a U.S. soldier, 39, who were trapped in a rip current about 100 yards from shore. The rip current was sucking the pair out, but incoming 6-foot waves were crashing on them, creating a whirlpool effect, Borgeo recalled. Still wearing his running shoes, he and one of his students made their way out to the snorkelers through shallow water, while the other student called emergency services. Borgeo jumped into the rip current and sped out to the girl, but was quickly exhausted as he worked to bring her toward the shallows, he said. Then he encountered her mother, who had been sucked into the swirling waters as well. I grabbed mom and I grabbed the girl and I just kicked for all life, Borgeo said. At some point during the rescue, Takahashi entered the water, Borgeo said. He said he didn't see the Japanese icon during the ordeal. Borgeo's students caught glimpses of him until he disappeared beneath the waves. He's a hero, Borgeo said of Takahashi. He died trying to save someone else. Borgeo said he got the woman into the shallows and returned for the soldier. He tried to help him out of the whirlpool, but was soon out of energy and in danger of drowning himself. That was one of the hardest things I ever had to do. I let the man go so I could save myself, he wrote in his wit. Oh my God. Oh my God.
That's really, 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 really sad. Oh man, I couldn't even imagine the kind of thing that's going through his head, like the survivor's guilt. Oh, of that, having to do that.
The Army provided. I didn't think I was going to make it, Borgeo said, adding that he thought about his children. His student barked words of encouragement. Somehow Borgeo found his last bit of strength and made it out. He said he was then able to direct the soldier out of the whirlpool and onto the shore. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. So much just to take in from that. For starters, above and before any of it, rest in peace to Kazuki Takahashi. He went out like the true legend and hero that he was and forever will be
Absolutely.
known as. Because for you to go out like that, that's a real hero. Somebody going out there and attempting to save lives, that's a real hero. This was an elderly man, you know what I'm saying? This wasn't a young guy. So the fact that he even went in there speaks volumes of his character, speaks volumes of the person that he was, and overall is just heroic to say the least. Then on top of that, we find out in this, because again, all we heard was this was a snorkeling accident. We didn't hear any of these details over the summer, and a lot of us were just kind of puzzled, like, what's going on here? He had a what? Like, it just kind of didn't even make sense, to be honest with you. When I heard it, I personally thought that there had to be more to the story because it just kind of didn't add up. Now we're hearing from this army vet soldier that basically he had to let Takahashi go. If not, he would have drowned himself. So he was attempting to save him and essentially was out of energy. Honestly, I don't know how to feel about that. I mean, at the end of the day, what can you do, right? If you was in his shoes, you cannot speak on what you would do because you don't know. Would you have attempted to keep on going, especially if you're at that point exhausted and out of energy after just saving 2 other people? The world will never know, and I don't think it's for us to necessarily judge. It's a sad situation. It's tragic as hell. Like, this is easily one of the most saddest things I've ever had to read from, you know, an author or somebody in the anime and manga industry. Like, this is just flat out sad. But also, I think more importantly than any of that, excluding, you know, the army soldier that at the end of the day, he was a hero because he did save people as well. Takahashi was a hero. That's what I think we need to focus on with this whole tragedy, because at the end of the day, he's somebody that we should look to like, oh, he was a real one. He was.
Kazuki Takahashi, known also by his pen name of Kazuo, he was born on October 4th, 1961. Throughout his young life, Kazuki loved to draw and play games. Whilst playing games, Kazuki felt that no matter who the player was, through games, they could become the hero of a story. This idea would stick in Kazuki's mind for the remainder of his life, and would eventually serve as the foundation for his success. One day, whilst watching a paper theatre show, which would consist of an old man telling stories through illustrated paper cards, Kazuki would ponder if the old man hosting the show had drawn all the pictures by himself. Thinking about this would motivate Kazuki to take his own drawings more seriously. However, it would take one particular event to truly solidify the path that he wanted to take. Whilst in class, a teacher compared the underperforming Kazuki to nothing but a defecating machine, essentially saying he was someone who would most likely never amount to anything. Despite insulting Kazuki in front of the whole class, he defiantly stood up and asked through the laughter of his
Jesus Christ, you guys, I go to the bathroom for 1 minute and everybody's like, mute it, bitch. Mute your shit. My bad. Let me start over.
Kazuki felt that no matter who the player was, through games, they could become the hero of a story. This idea would stick in Kazuki's mind for the remainder of his life, and would eventually serve as the foundation for his success. One day, whilst watching a paper theatre show, which would consist of an old man telling stories through illustrated paper cards, Kazuki would ponder if the old man hosting the show had drawn all the pictures by himself. Thinking about this would motivate Kazuki to take his own drawings more seriously. However, it would take one particular event to truly solidify the path that he wanted to take. Whilst in class, a teacher compared the underperforming Kazuki to nothing but a defecating machine, essentially saying he was someone who would most likely never amount to anything. Despite insulting Kazuki in front of the whole class, he defiantly stood up and asked through the laughter of his classmates, "Oh yeah? Well, could a defecating machine create manga?" And so, at the age of 19, Takahashi made his manga debut by winning a Shonen Jump competition. However, despite hitting the ground running, over the next decade, Takahashi would struggle to create a good enough idea for a story that would get publishers backing. Eventually, in the year 1990, his first work would be published, known as Battle Ball. It was the tale of Ikiman, a superhuman alien that gets dumped by his girlfriend and then swears to become even more famous than her so they can get her back. And so Ikiman becomes entwined with the Battle Ball team and becomes their superhuman teammate that battles against alien enemies for the title of champion. A year after Battle Ball's publication, Kazuki would make Tenshoku Danji Beret. This story followed Beret, an unreliable man who used his...
Have any of you heard some of these cartoons? Because I have not. I am definitely learning this anime stuff. So I know what Yu-Gi-Oh is, but I don't know any of this stuff.
Strong body to earn money by working as a hitman. However, after falling in love with a sister of a church that is on the verge of collapse, he now uses his strength to save the church by acting as a professional wrestler. Both of these series would be short-lived, and Takahashi wanted to create something big, but all the biggest series were battle mangas, and he felt every type of story that could be told had been told in that genre.
I know that! I know who that is! I know who that is. That's Dragon Ball Z.
So, how would he make something original that would stand out from the crowd? In the end, he decided to create a battle manga where the premise wouldn't be characters just hitting each other. Instead, they would fight in a different way. What that way would be? Well, that proved difficult to figure out at first. However, once the word game came to Takahashi's mind, that's when all the pieces began to fall into place. He would create a manga that was based around his love for games, and the idea that anyone could become a hero in those games. This inspiration led to the creation of his main character, a boy who was seemingly weak and childish. However, once he would engage in a game, he would transform and become someone different. Someone who was confident and able to succeed at anything. Kazuki wanted friendship to be the core aspect of his series, and so he named the two main leads of the series after the word for friendship, Yugi and Janucci. Finally, every story needs a good rival, and so to create one, Kazuki thought back to a story he once heard about an arrogant card player who would flaunt his collection and would crush new players. This person would become the inspiration for Seto Kaiba. And so, by putting all of these elements together, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Manga was created. The story would focus on a new game each chapter, with unique rules and punishments. However, during one of these chapters, the characters played a made-up game inspired by the Magic the Gathering card game. They called it Magic and Wizards. It was only supposed to be one small story. However, this one-shot idea was about to change Kazuki Takahashi's life forever. After the Magic and Wizards chapter debuted, Shonen Jump received thousands of letters asking where they could get their hands on the Magic and Wizards card game. This enormous surge of interest gave Takahashi an idea. He would restart his series, this time focusing on a world that revolved all around the Magic and Wizards card game, which he now renamed Duel Monsters. And with this act, a global phenomenon was born. Bandai would create the first wave of physical cards for at-home play. However, it wasn't until Konami took over that we would see the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game expand across the globe. The Yu-Gi-Oh! Manga would then expand, receiving anime adaptations, movies, sequel series, video games, merchandise, tournaments, and so much more. It is estimated that the Yu-Gi-Oh! Brand is worth $20 billion, which in fact makes it
Damn, that is huge. I did not realize how big that is. That is nuts. I mean, he really, really did some shit, huh?
23rd highest grossing media franchise in the entire world. Kazuki Takahashi would remain closely attached to the brand over the years, overseeing storylines and new card artworks from time to time. He would also work on other manga and stories. One of his most recent contributions was during the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime's 10th anniversary movie, The Dark Side of Dimensions, where Kazuki not only acted as executive producer, but also hand-drew the key animations for 2 iconic scenes. You can see how much Kazuki enjoyed his creations, as his home was filled with memorabilia from the franchise. In fact, he even had his dog made into a card, which he himself did the artwork for. Yu-Gi-Oh! Would grow into not just a manga, an anime, or a card game, but a way for people to meet each other, to share hobbies, and to have fun.
I mean, I can totally see
Sadly.
that. So, like meeting, because I'm like, the Pog generation, and I remember everybody with the Pokemon cards and stuff. So I can definitely see like it was just something for kids to do, a new game to play for everybody. It's the collecting of the things and then playing with your friends and possibly being able to win that stuff, or lose the stuff. It's just the game. I see how they did it, and that's really, really neat. I really have I'm like earning some more respect for this guy and how he just changed a whole generation of kids.
On the 6th of July, 2022, Kazuki Takahashi passed away. While his story may seemingly end there, the legacy that he had built and the incredible amount of lives his work has helped will forever live on. I'd like to end this video with Kazuki Takahashi's final notes to his readers on the last page of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Manga. For 7 long years, I've traveled with Yu-Gi-Oh! I think I've been able to draw the themes I've wanted to express, but as I end the series, my main concern is whether I've transmitted my message to my readers. From the moment Yugi put together the Millennium Puzzle, the other self appeared in his heart. The time needed to explore the 2 main characters turned this into a long series. In our daily life, we never get to see ourselves except by standing in front of a mirror, but even a mirror won't reflect our hearts. The main characters of this work won the courage and strength of will to face each other's hearts. As we go about our lives, we touch people. We see people, interact with them, and in doing so, we feel and think many things. Sometimes we make others happy. Sometimes we hurt them. We sympathize and we disagree. In the midst of this, we learn that people's thoughts and feelings are not a one-way street. You may say that something's very basic and natural, but what I wanted to draw and write in this work was just that interaction between people. And in order to do that, I used games. The games that the characters played were not played facing monitors, but facing other people. The opponent they played were the mirrors that reflected their hearts. In a basic sense, they fought each other's spirits. Because this was a manga, it was deeply coloured by the battle between good and evil. But I think the basis of the game was to clarify what lies between people. I think this was the reason that the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game became so successful all over the world. In my mind, Yu-Gi-Oh! Has been completed. But throughout the world, many people are taking my work and the cards in their hands. In gratitude for that, I would like to prolong the world of Yu-Gi-Oh! For just a little while longer. I borrow the end of this book to thank all of those who have participated in this world. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Kazuki Takahashi.
Oh, that's gonna make me cry. That is so sweet. What a sweet, kind, loving, caring human being that sees the flaws in human existence and how we look at ourselves and make us feel like we're superheroes battling the hearts of people and showing our hearts instead of having to, like Megan Kelly earlier today, the vain and narcissism. This is like that complete opposite thing, seeing through the facade and getting to know the heart, because there's a superhero in there somewhere that everybody has. I'm gonna cry. It's so sweet. Oh, I love it. I think that's so awesome. And it's so sad. Like, he stopped doing this and then that's it. Like, am I still on? I hope I didn't get turned off. I think that's adorable. Y'all are scaring me now. Am I on? I feel like shit is, oh, it still says I'm live. Okay. And my internet is just so crazy. Okay, yeah, I'm still here. I'm not getting the comments in StreamYard. Oh, now they're all popping up at the same time. That's weird. Dude, there's something going on with YouTube today. YouTube is being weird. Megan, the type to push people into a whirlpool. Exactly. What a great guy. Like, he literally brought out the superhero in people, made people feel more than just what they see in the mirror. And then he dies a superhero. Just sucks that he doesn't get like the recognition and all of like, a really big funeral procession, like the superhero type funeral. I think he deserves it. So what a great story. And what a sad ending too. But I'm so happy that he ended his life as a hero, which is what he wanted to make his life be like. When creators make these kinds of things, it's usually their own minds, their own things that they're struggling with, or things that they see people struggling with. It's something that they're aware of. So it's just good to see what he created off of that. And then his passing was still that, it was always that. So I might watch Yu-Gi-Oh! Maybe I'll get into it. I did notice that Hulu has a lot of really good anime. Warren's going to be excited. I found Attack on Titans on Hulu last night. So I might get into Attack on Titans, because if I'm going to get into like anime and stuff, at least I want to start off with like the horror aspect of it, so that way I can kind of get myself into anime. I'm not much of like an action adventure kind of person. I don't like a lot of, like the male kind of movies where it's just like sword fighting and shooting them up and all that stuff. And then, yeah, I'm not all into that. I'm more into like, the horror aspect of things. So if I can find an anime that has that part in it, I'm totally down to do it. So I did find Attack on Titans, and I'll probably get to start watching that as well. So Attack on Titans is fun. Did this guy create Attack on Titans? I have no idea if he did. That'd be really cool if he did too. It looks like he made all the Dragon Balls as well. And Dragon Ball Z, I do remember watching when I got home from school as a teenager. Trunks was my favorite. I love me some Trunks. He was super hot. He was the one with the purple hair. I used to have like some guy in my health class drew him for me and like colored him, because he was really into all the anime stuff. And I got it from him, and I would put it in my folder. Like, we used to have those folders with like the clear fronts. I'd stick it in there, and that was the front of my folder for a very long time, was Trunks. So what a great story, and what a really sad ending. But yeah, hi Holly, good to see you. Okay, so now that we did that one, all right, so this next one I want to talk about is inflation.
The official.
So here is what the news is saying right now about inflation. So let's hear the bullshit.
Economic numbers confirm what American households already know. Prices continued to rise in September. According to the Consumer Price Index report released Thursday, prices increased 0.4% last month. That's a faster rate.
Again, Holly, no notification. Yeah, Les Bones didn't get one either. I think it was Les Bones that said that. Somebody else said that they didn't get one either. I'm telling you, I think they're bullying me.
Than August's 0.1% reading. Overall, inflation climbed 8.2% in the year through September, higher than economists had predicted. For more on all this, I want to bring in Ben Levison. He's a deputy editor at Barron's. Ben, what do you see inside this data?
This data is just, it's a really tough one. It's showing that there's very few signs of inflation cooling down. There was some good news in it. Gas prices are down. Used car prices, which we remember had gone up so much, those have started to come down. And clothing prices, apparel, that's come down as well. But you look at pretty much everything else. it's a problem. Grocery prices are going up. The way that the economists measure the rent and whatnot, that's gone up a lot, and it's so broad that it really indicates that there hasn't been a cool down in inflation just yet. One that many people were expecting to see at this point.
Well, that's yes, there's a lot of expectation missing here. But before I get to beating up on the expectation predictors, the Federal Reserve has already promised to raise rates. Do you think this will make it them do it more? And does this ensure
absolutely? So they're raising rates because inflation rates are going up. They keep raising inflation, raise. Everything is just the cost of living is just getting way, way, way too high. Exactly. Duh. Maybe we should do something about it instead of keep raising interest rates on people. So that way, like the regular people could never even afford a loan or anything if they wanted to. That's exactly the way that we should go. No, come on, let's do something good.
This idea of a managed reduction of inflation, a so-called soft landing, is an impossibility. That inflation is just too protracted.
Which is what they're trying to do. That's what they're trying to do. They were just saying last night that the Fed might be raising the interest rates 0.75 of a point, and they're going to keep doing this every quarter until things start to balance out, or when reality we are going into a recession. That's exactly what's happening.
It's not necessarily an impossibility. The Fed is going to raise rates almost certainly by 0.75 of a point at its next meeting in November. And the hope was that it could start tapering those off, that you could go with 0.5 point and then 0.25 of a point. And I think those hopes are pretty much dashed with this report. The market's now expecting another 0.75 November, 0.75 after that. And it actually thinks that the rate could get as high as 5%, which is much higher than anyone really thought if you go back even just a few months. I'm not sure about the soft landing part, though. It does look like that the odds favor a recession, but there's still that chance that because the economy is as strong as it is, that you can end up with a soft landing, that it can handle some of what's happening with.
It's not. Our economy is not strong. It's strong maybe because of like the rich elites are getting even richer, but this soft landing is only going to be a soft landing for the powerful people. We're all fucked. We've been fucked for years. Many people are already homeless. Many people can barely even afford to live, afford to eat, afford health insurance. Nobody's going to be able to afford anything at all. And money that they're giving, letting other countries borrow certain money. I think they just gave like some like billions of dollars over to like the Swiss National Bank recently. And those interest rates are going to go up too. So that Switzerland's going to have to pay a shitload in interest rates on the money that they loan from America. So
with the Fed rate hikes right now, but we have to remember that the rate hikes, they slow the economy. They take a while to do that. They could take anywhere from 6 to 12 months before those rate hikes actually have an effect. So we're really not going to see evidence of this for another few months.
So back to this idea that inflation is once again.
So they're telling us it's only going to get worse. What we're dealing with now is just going to get worse. It's not going to go down. The price of things are not going to go down. It's just going to keep going up. And interest rates are just going to keep going up.
Hotter than expected. If those who are making guesses about the economy keep getting things wrong, which means their policy responses are going to be misses, is there a cumulative uncertainty that attaches to all of this compounding error?
I think there is. One of the things that I think we were all used to for really the decade leading up to COVID is that there wasn't a lot of volatility to the economic data. Growth wasn't fast. It was actually quite slow, but there wasn't a lot of variation to it. We were very used to this.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Ghostar. Japan is a really, really, really good explanation on how to run an economy with deficits, because even though, they have like almost the same amount as debts as we do here in America, their GDP is still amazing. Like their people are still doing a hell of a lot better than we are. And it's crazy. It's wild. You're absolutely right.
Growth that was very close to 2%. Inflation wasn't high, and there were hopes that growth could pick up, but it never really happened. What we're seeing now is that it's harder to predict.
Wait, growth didn't pick up because nobody got shit. We literally had to battle the government for $2,000, which we never even got the full amount. I mean, we got like some from Trump and then a little bit more from to cover the rest from Biden. $2,000 is like pretty much a month's rent for certain people. How is that going to cover their cost of living for 2 years under a quarantine, a pandemic? And then all we're doing after that is just raising these interest rates. People can't afford shit. What are we going to afford?
What the economic data is going to look like. Things that we used to be able to count on aren't shaping up the way that we once expected them to. And I think that makes it very hard for policymakers and really gives the Fed no choice but to keep doing what it's doing. It has to stick to its guns. It has to decide that, it has to keep going with these rate hikes until it does see signs that inflation is coming down, because that is
so
really
it's just going to keep raising interest rates until they see inflation going down, but it's not going to go down. It's going to keep going worse. And this is going to be like the fall of Rome, but the fall of America. Just wait. It's going to happen
right now.
And finally, Ben, we have had often the experience where bad news in one context elicits good news in another. And that leads me to a question about the stock market, which had a very strong day today. What's your assessment of why that was the case?
I mean, that left everyone kind of befuddled, myself included. The initial reaction from the stock market was exactly what you would have expected. The market had been up before the release. The futures tumbled very quickly, and the market looked like it was heading for a very massive sell-off. Instead, it rallied. I think there were a few reasons that people pointed to for that. One is that earnings during the day, companies like Domino's Pizza and Delta.
They were really, really low yesterday, like 500 points down, and then everybody rallied up to make sure that the stock market still stays up. So they rallied up and got them 800 over at the end of the day. But repeat after me: the stock market is not the economy. The stock market is not the economy. Just keep repeating that to yourself, because everybody else seems to not fucking care and thinks that it is for some reason.
Airlines had come out and they actually given good guidance, saying that their profits and sales would be strong going forward. And then you had also just the fact that everybody has been so scared of this market, so scared of what happens if you do get a hotter than expected inflation print, that it's very possible that everybody who needed to sell had sold. And we hit some what we like to call technical levels. These are what the chart watchers look at, but the machines are trading on them. And you hit some of these levels, and all of a sudden you can get a bounce that takes on a lot of strength that might not have been expected.
Another unexpected event in our economy. Ben, thank you for
pretty much fixing the economy or fixing the market to make it look like they're doing really good. So now that we're hearing all this and we know that we're pretty much doomed to fucking be poor and live on the streets, there was a group, or not a group, a page on Twitter that is, okay, hold on, let me bring it up really quick. So this Twitter is called the RNC Research. This is a good video that this person made, a little compilation about how Democrats have been wrong on inflation since the beginning, and that the Biden administration has spent the last 18 months lying about inflation. Sorry.
I really doubt that we're going to see an inflationary cycle.
Most economic analysts believe that it will have a temporary or transitory impact.
The faster than expected increase in some of those prices is actually a good sign.
The overwhelming consensus is going to pop up a little bit and then go back down. No one's talking about this great,
This is something that will settle down.
Transitory.
Transitory.
And the data shows that most of the price increases we've seen were expected and are expected to be temporary. There's nobody suggesting there's unchecked inflation on the way. It's highly unlikely that's going to be long-term inflation that's going to get out of hand. I don't know anybody who's worried about inflation.
Over the last couple of months, we actually saw it trended downward.
President Biden's chief of staff, Ron Klain, enthusiastically retweeted an economist who had said, in part, most of the economic problems we're facing, inflation, supply chains, et cetera, are high-class problems.
What is the Granholm plan to increase oil production in America?
Oh my God, that is hilarious. Well, the number one thing that the president can do is help get COVID
Did you guys hear her laugh? So instead of, bringing in more production so that way they don't have to raise interest rates, she's like, no, why would we do that? It's an answer to inflation. Things are costing so much because people are charging that much for that stuff, because that's what they do with like the diamonds and stuff. Like, there's too many diamonds being sold in the market. The prices have to go down. So they pull back on some of it so that way they can raise the prices. And that's what's happening, is like, we're not getting all the production that we need. We're not getting the products that we need here. So they're raising interest rates, which means that people can't even buy the stuff that's out there. But go ahead and laugh, lady. Go ahead and laugh about it, that we're not bringing production here to America. Gotta go. Yes, head to work. If you gotta go to work, please. I thank you for coming. I truly appreciate you. Go start. Thanks for the support. And have a good day at work. Hopefully you'll make a lot of money. At least at least for your water bill. I totally get that. The water bill everywhere is ridiculous. Everybody's water bill is so high. It's so sad. I think we're paying like $300 a month for water. It's nuts.
Not under control. That we know is the root cause of inflation.
President Biden this afternoon saying he thinks we're at the peak of the crisis right now and that lower prices are on the way.
The inflation has everything to do with the supply chain. Make no mistake, inflation is largely the fault of Putin. I'm going to do everything I can to minimize Putin's price hike here at home.
You got to love the whole let's blame Putin for everything. Here we go with that Russian scare again. It's so gross.
If you want to get rid of inflation, the only way to do it is to undo a lot of the Trump tax cuts.
I think ever since you've come into office, things are really looking up. Gas is up, rent is up, food is up, everything.
And he just laughs about it. He just fucking laughs about it. That's crazy to me. Rent is up, food is up. Inflation is largely the fault of Putin. I'm going to do everything I can to minimize Putin's price hike. It's just the way that they blame Putin too. And then this guy saying that we need to undo a lot of Trump's tax cuts. Like, yeah, he gave a lot of tax cuts to really rich, wealthy people, but all politicians do. Every president does. I mean, just on a yearly basis, they prove that by these really rich elite people not having to pay taxes on anything. Like, you want to see why that debt clock is going up? That's because we're not taxing the shit out of these rich people, and we're taxing the shit out of poor people. Like, the rich people just don't have to pay taxes on anything because they don't make an income. Everything's an asset. So they don't have to pay taxes on it. It's wild to me. It's the corruption that's causing this, and we're suffering for it. And people are just dealing with it. We're just taking it. Like, we're taking it up the ass. Like, I don't understand why we keep doing that. So now we're going to have a little fun with this whole like taxes and all of that stuff, and the cost of, or I mean, not taxes, but the cost of living and inflation. So let me share screen, share this window. All right. So here's an inflation calendar. Okay. So this right here, original, when I just opened the website, from 1913 to 2022, if something was $1 in 1913, it's $29 now. So inflation rate has gone up 2,898.1%. So if we do this, let's say just since 2020, when the pandemic started, we'll calculate it to today, we've already gone up almost 15%. So 15 cents extra just in the last 2 years. Things have gone up. The price of things have gone up. Okay. Let's start my heyday years of remembering when it was the good times as a millennial. So like 2003, when gas prices were still, so we were up 61%. Things were way, way, way high, probably because we were in a war. So if you come over here to like the cost of living, let's say you're in here like the state of Texas, like I was showing you guys earlier. And let's say you wanted to move to California. Let's do, where's Los Angeles? There we go. Los Angeles. All right. You're making a $50,000. All right. You would need to be making $83,000. The cost of living is 67% higher. Here's how much of a change of prices of things would be. So right here, sausage, it's up 28%. Frying chicken, tuna, eggs is up over 110%, which is wild because, yeah, I'm used to paying about $3.26 for a carton of eggs. Margarine is down, so butter's down, but cheese, Parmesan cheese, 35%, potatoes, 35%, bananas, 74%, lettuce, 8%, bread, 18%. Like, look at all of these that are going up. Somebody write in, I want you guys to write in the comments where you're from, and I'll have you guys move to America and see how much more you'll be paying. If we go to, let's say, like Madison County, Alabama, let's do that one. Okay, you need 81,000 to survive. Look at how much more things are. Look, eggs are up 183% if you moved there from there to here. Like, this is how much more you're paying when you move to this. And this is the cost of living comparison calculator. Sausage is up. Yeah. Absolutely, sausage is up. Okay, so let's say if you want to move from Los Angeles to okay, problems are up with, or eggs are up because of ongoing problems with what kind of, wait, a flu? It hit a flock hard. That makes sense. So let's say you want to move from LA to New York. Let's go to New York, New York. Look at that. You guys are even higher than California. You guys would be, I mean, look at that. Whole milk. You get better prices on eggs. Oh, the Asian flu. Okay. But everything else is still up. I mean, lettuce is up 67%, detergent, soft drinks. I mean, everything, even margarine is up 102%. So you guys pay like $2.50 and we pay $1.50. Rent in California is around $2,900 or about $3,000. New York is about $4,500. So it's up 56%. Home prices are up 136% compared to California. Energy is down. Phones, transportation costs, balancing your tires, gasoline. You guys would be going down if you moved to New York because, yeah, we're higher than this still, but doctor's visits, miscellaneous costs, even just get, a washer repair is 63% higher. Wine is 74% higher in New York. Tennis balls are up 60%. Shampoo is up 61%. It's just crazy, like the cost, and just seeing like the price of some of these things too. Like toothpaste is almost $4 in New York. Like, really, that's absolutely out of hand. Jeans, $25 in America, or in California, it's almost $30 for some jeans, $40 for some slacks. That's wild to me. Look at, just to go to the movies, you need like $20 just for yourself. It's wild. Fried chicken, haircuts, no difference. The avian flu. Okay. Only reason why power's down in New York State is because we have hydroelectric dams and still have that water. Okay, that makes sense. Jesus. Israel just torched over 30,000 chickens in Palestine. Holy fuck. That's crazy. All proteins are up due to energy prices and feed. hay is really high as well. Yeah. Sherry would know about this. She works in like the agricultural area. So she definitely knows this stuff. Yeah. And much of it is much of it is due to climate change. Absolutely. Yeah. And this is like they're saying, you know, we need to raise interest rates because, you know, we're going to go into a recession if we don't. But then they keep raising and raising and raising. And now we're spending, you know, close to $4 just for, you know, some eggs, which is wild. It doesn't make sense to me it makes sense to me how they're getting away with it because of how corrupt our system is. It just doesn't make sense to me as how people are not seeing this and fighting back. And it's like we got to get to a point of where we just feel like we've got nothing left to lose. And we've got to fight this because paying $4 for a carton of eggs is ridiculous. Nobody can live off of that for a very long time. And especially if it gets even higher. Exactly. Justice for chickens. Justice for chickens. Amen. Y'all, I'm going through these articles a little too fast for my liking. Of course, that's like the number one thing. Monopoly profits. Like that's huge. And do the inflation. Oh yeah, we already did the inflation calendar. But everybody's talking about like these inflation stuff. Like, I mean, you type in inflation in the search engine. Look, 5 hours ago, 11 hours ago, 17 hours ago, 4 hours ago, 15 hours ago, 16, 10, a day ago. So they're talking about it right now, like literally right now. This one says, here's what to know as inflation climbs. I hate that I get like all the mainstream stuff first. Like, you know, what would be really great is if YouTube could, like, if you look for something to just look through or give you all your subscriptions videos first and then do whatever. Cause you're always starting me with like top news. No wonder these fucking, you know, mainstream media things are getting so much attention and so many views on YouTube. It's because this is what YouTube does to them. Like, give me my subscriptions first. Cause I'll just like, I don't even like looking for things anymore because when I search things in the YouTube search engine, this is exactly what it gives me. Bloomberg, News, USA Today. Like, it's crazy. KSL News, PBS NewsHour, NBC, Minority Mindset, CNBC. It's horrible. I think, who was I watching about this? Is his name Mark Harvey? Who's that really cool guy that does the MMT stuff? He's like the gray-haired older dude, and he has really nice teeth. Really white teeth. I don't remember. I mean, I was watching him. Hold on, let me see if I can find him. So we could probably watch him since I'm going over this stuff way, 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 way too fast. We can watch this guy. Who's that MMT guy on YouTube that just sits there and talks and he's got the gray hair? There he is. Okay. This guy.
Hey, what's going on?
Mike Norman. I called him Mark Harvey.
Hey, what's going on?
Mike Norman. Thank you. That's going to be a name I will never forget. So here he talks about the inflation. This is talking initially about the $6.3 billion that we gave to the Swiss National Bank. But he talks about inflation and stuff in this as well. Wait. Gary V. No. Yeah, I don't know who the NFT guy is. It's this guy right here. He's an MMT dude.
Hello, everybody. It is Thursday. From somebody who asked me in the comments. And if you have questions, please put your questions in the comments and I'll try to get to it. But somebody asked me, Mike, can you explain, these central bank liquidity swaps? He read something and there was some news that recently in the last week or so, the Fed gave or lent out $3 billion to the Swiss National Bank. And I believe that number, I just checked it again today, that's up to 6.2 billion to the Swiss National Bank, and also about 300 million to the ECB. 300 million for central banks. It's kind of like chump change, but the 6.2 billion is something that is big, at least in recent history. And I'm saying like in the past, 7, 8, 9 months. So let me talk about what these swap lines are. Basically, the Fed has arrangements with other major central banks like the Swiss National Bank, the Bank of England, the Bank of Japan, Bank of Canada, Australian National Bank, the RBNZ in New Zealand, and a couple of other ones. The Fed has arrangements where, if needed, the Fed will lend dollars to these central banks in a swap arrangement. In other words, they'll swap it for their currency. If they're doing it with the Swiss National Bank, basically the collateral it puts up is Swiss francs. And these swap lines have a term. They could be a couple of days, they could be a week, they could be a couple of weeks. But the Fed is comfortable with these arrangements because these are major central banks, and also it feels like it has the collateral, which is the foreign currency. But I'm gonna talk about that in a minute. So we know that from time to time, and around the world, many institutions and businesses, they transact in dollars, and many of them have debts denominated in dollars, right? And from time to time, a situation can arise where, because of short-term liquidity problems or something, they may be short dollars and they need that, and the only place they can get it is from the Fed. So the Fed will provide these dollars. It's basically like a short-term loan. The Fed will provide these dollars to assist, and it's not for the central banks themselves. But what happens is, like, the central banks, let's say, for example, the Swiss National Bank, they might have some entity within their system. It could be a bank like Credit Suisse, and I think that's what this 6.2 billion is related to. Some entity within their system, a bank in their system, a financial institution in their system. It could be a large corporate entity in their system. The Swiss National Bank or the ECB will provide those dollars to that entity to meet whatever dollar liability they need to meet. And this way, by providing these dollars, it precludes something that might be very disruptive in the system, like some kind of a liquidity crisis, okay? And then the central bank gets paid back by the entity, and then the central bank pays the swap is unwound, where the Swiss francs go back to the Swiss National Bank and the dollars are back at the Fed. And it doesn't actually go over there. This is all bookkeeping entries. The dollars always stay at the Fed, but it stays at the Swiss National Bank's account at the Fed, and the Fed's Swiss francs stay at the Fed's account at the Swiss National Bank. Okay, it just gets credited to the Fed, and the dollars here get credited to the Swiss National Bank. What's interesting about these swap lines, and I'm going to give you some history, because going back to basically 2008, when the Fed started with these things in 2008, in the midst of the financial crisis, at one point, these swap lines reached a peak of almost 600 billion on the Fed's books. So the Fed had doled out almost 600 billion to foreign central banks, which was then lent out to entities within these central bank systems. And I remember at the time, it was wild because I was talking about this on my blog, Mike Norman Economics, and I was saying, like, at the time this was going on, Congress was having this big heated debate about bailing out General Motors, if you can remember that. And I think the bailout for General Motors was like 11 billion or 12.
Do you guys remember that when they had to bail out General Motors, GM?
Billion, maybe it was 18 billion. I don't remember, but it was like around that level. And it was like, we shouldn't do this. And I'm thinking, and I was screaming at the top of my lungs, not to these people, of course, I have no access to them, but on my blog, I'm saying the Fed is lending out almost $600 billion to foreign entities. And I remember reading that Volkswagen got some of this money. Siemens got some of this money. I think Toyota or Honda got some of this money. And like, we can't bail out our own, corporation. General Motors, a long history, employs a lot of people here. Whether you want to make that argument or not, I was saying the hypocrisy, like, here's the Fed, and nobody was questioning that. Nobody was questioning that. It was those swap lines at that time were the biggest asset on the Fed's books, bigger than the amount of treasuries that it held. Here's the clip.
Okay, let me show you what happened with these swap lines. This is the data from the Fed, and you can see that here in 2008, December 2008, these hit a peak of 582 billion. These were actually the largest asset on the Fed's books at the time. 582
that
billion.
That one is showing
short-term loans.
That one is showing Wednesday, December 10th, 2008. I think that was like right around the time when Obama became president, was right around then.
It could have been at one point, I think Volkswagen, the big corporations, German corporations got this money. Japan, who knows who got it? Honda, Toyota. And then again, we see in May 2020, these were extended out. You had 449, almost 450 billion on the Fed's books. And these are short term. I mean, they've been paid back, but now they're down to 3.3 billion.
All right, there's one thing I forgot to mention, and it's very important that I tell you this. All right, because when the Fed engages in these swap lines, and nobody really pays a lot of attention to it, but there is unlimited risk for the Fed. It's not like the Fed, buying U.S. government securities where there's zero risk. The Treasury can always make good on those securities. When the Fed engages in these swap lines and takes a foreign currency as collateral for U.S. dollar loans, there is unlimited foreign exchange risk. So like if we go back to that example I gave you in 2008, where there was almost 600 billion of these swap lines outstanding, not one single politician said anything, even though there was unlimited risk to the Fed. Okay, it's not a high likelihood, I'll say that, but the foreign currency can devalue quickly to the point where the foreign central bank is not able to meet its obligation to pay back those swap lines. So this is something you have to understand. When the Fed engages in those swap lines, it's kind of like going outside the boundaries of what its normal activities are, where it could discount U.S. Treasuries or bank loans, stuff that, in the case of Treasuries, it's virtually zero risk. But when it takes on foreign currency as collateral, think about it. That's unlimited foreign exchange risk. And nobody said anything. And we were haggling over whether or not to bail out General Motors, which right now is a viable concern. It's an ongoing company. It employs people. It makes stuff. But back then, the Fed was giving out almost, $2/3 of $1 trillion with unlimited risk. Think about that.
While they, sat there and completely ignored the human population. 2020 was literally around the time where we were going into a pandemic and people were afraid they weren't going to be able to afford their houses or afford their homes or afford to be able to feed their kids or themselves. This is what we had to deal with in 2020 while they're offering, other banks in other countries just buttloads of money. We couldn't even get barely 2,000. It's sad.
.com. I'll put the link. And if you just in the search box, if you put swap lines, you'll see how many articles I posted on that. It was just unbelievable because on the one hand, I was watching Congress, really have this very heated debate about should we bail out General Motors, our corporation, our workers, industrial production, manufacturing in this country. We didn't want to do it. It was, you know, it was something that it took a lot of debate and a lot of cajoling, and finally we did it. And it's like after we did it, there was all this complaining. But at the same time, I mean, we were literally bailing out Volkswagen. The Fed was bailing out Volkswagen. The Fed was bailing out Siemens, these giant corporations, Honda, Toyota. I mean, the money was going to banks as well. So it was really, really an incredible thing. But anyway, we haven't seen much, as I showed you in the data. There hasn't been much going on in these swap lines, which I found to be quite interesting, and I'll tell you why. Because the dollar's been going up and up and up. Interest rates, dollar interest rates, as everyone knows, have been going up because the Fed's been raising rates. So financing costs in dollar terms has been getting really, really expensive. In other words, if you're a foreign entity and you borrowed in dollars, your borrowing cost is going up, both in the sense of the interest rate that you paid and, you know, the cost of dollars. The dollar's just been skyrocketing, right? So like you would think that under these circumstances that these swap lines would be blowing up again. Like I was expecting to see these swap lines really start to blow up. But they haven't. I mean, they've been very, very tame, which means like, it says to me, like, the world is not really short dollars, like in an acute way where they're being squeezed. But now we see this $6 billion going to Switzerland, and I'm pretty sure that has to do with Credit Suisse. Credit Suisse is supposedly like in big trouble financially now. They're probably on the hook for dollars. They needed this. Hang on. And it is coming down that video when we had that spike in 2008 with these swap lines. And then we had that spike in 2020 with these swap lines. Both of those times were the peak in the dollar rally. And it's almost like if you think about, you know, and again, I can relate to this as a former floor trader on the exchange. You know, let's say the pit, we're short. We're always short. And the market's creeping up. It's creeping up. It's creeping up. And nobody's getting really panicky or anything like that. But it keeps creeping up. And then we start to see some short covering come in, some buying. And then all of a sudden, it just explodes. Everybody has to get out. And it was like, boom. And you could hear it. The noise level goes up. You know, people are just like jumping in front of each other, bidding higher and higher. There are no offers. And you always knew that was the top. At least that was the top, you know, for the day, the move. And it was like the same thing I saw with these swap lines that, you know, they're kind of like nothing going on, nothing going on. They start creeping up. Then all of a sudden, everybody comes to the Fed window. We need dollars. And then boom, the Fed could supply unlimited, right? I mean, just whatever the system needs. And
that's absolutely wild to me. Like a bunch of dudes on the floor of a building of Wall Street can say that they need more dollars. They need more dollars because the stock market is showing, you know, different things. And like the Fed's just like, here you go, have some. But the people are like starving and losing their homes and are like, we need dollars. And the Fed's like, no, sorry. Maybe we can give you 600 for the whole year. But that's it.
Some of these institutions, at least one of them or a couple in Switzerland, are starting to feel some pain. And they're telling the Swiss National Bank, hey, get us some dollars because we're in trouble right now. We're getting squeezed and we need the dollars. And the Swiss bank goes to the Fed and said, okay, can you provide us? And boom, it's done. I will put the link below to my blog. They give you who it went to. And then you could also get, they also have in Excel format or a PDF, a list of all the central banks and what they have taken and what their position is. So, you know, if you're interested in following these swap lines, they're there. I'll also put in the link to what I just showed you from the Federal Reserve in St. Louis that has the historical readout of these swap lines. Anyway, something's going on. I hope something is heard right now. Those are ambulance. It's sometimes trade worthy. In other words, when you see that thing spike, it's telling you something. It's telling you that a system, and when I say system, I mean a monetary system like the Eurozone system, the yen system, you know, the Bank of England system. A system somewhere is short dollars, and now they're kind of panicking to get out. They got to go to the Fed, please, you know, can you give us dollars? Not every central bank has this relationship with the Fed. So it's like a privileged kind of deal. And I think last year, or maybe actually it was in 2020 during the pandemic, I think they expanded the
The whole money for thee, but not for me. Let them eat cake.
List of members, they added a few more members. In the beginning, when it first started, it was basically, you know, Swiss National Bank, Bank of England, Bank of Japan, Bank of Canada, Bank of Australia, and New Zealand. And they added some more in there. So that's it for now, folks.
So that's it for now, folks. That's what we have to deal with. I like listening to him talk about this stuff. Like sometimes a lot of the stuff goes over my head, but then a lot of the time I'm like, okay, I kind of understand what you're saying. So he just says things in really smart terms because he's, you know, used to doing this. This is his get up. So he's really smart. I'd go check him out, Mike Norman on YouTube. Let's see, what else do we have today for us? Oh yeah, who was John Hurly? So yesterday, like I was saying earlier, Luke Wazowski, I don't know how to say his name, from We Are Change, did a video about this guy named Johnny Hurly. His mom has filed a lawsuit against the Arvada police over her son's death, Johnny's death. The police have released the video of what they're calling like the Good Samaritan. Oh, I guess this happened about a year ago. But they're just now coming out with like new stuff about this guy. It seems like the police department is trying to keep this on the down low and not letting other people hear about this, not letting people find out about this. But this guy definitely was, I mean, to an extent, a hero, what he did. So here's the video. God, I think I've been drinking too much coffee today. So I'm going to play this, mute myself. Wait, let's watch this and then I'll mute myself at the next video because she talks. I don't think this has a lot of talking in it. So here's the video. Released camera footage of the police. Apparently there was a shot. So that's the guy. He came out and he heard the shot. So he ran out there to see what's going on. As you can tell, see him right here. He is ducking and hiding from the dude. He's got his pistol out and he goes up right here against this wall. And I believe the shooter is behind this tree area. But there's him trying to probably wait to take his shot to see what he can do. There was people that ran from the whole situation, from him doing that. And I believe that's him going towards the suspect. Yeah, there he was right there, going towards the suspect to get the gun. What is this one? So there's another video. Hey, we'll watch the mother of Johnny. She is now suing or filing a lawsuit against the police department over her son's death. So here's the guy. He worked for, or he volunteered or worked for the We Are Change Colorado organization. So here is this video. Let me go run to the bathroom.
He had compassion and he knew that he was being called upon to help.
Heroism is defined in many ways.
The outcome needs to be worthy of what he did.
Kathleen Bolin knows hers.
To lay your life on the line, to put everything at stake, to help others. And in this case, it was strangers.
Her son, Johnny Hurly, was killed on June 21st last year in Old Town Arvada. Hurly rushed in to kill the gunman who had just shot and killed Arvada police officer Gordon Beasley. When Hurley picked up the gunman's rifle, a lawsuit filed this week says that Arvada officer Craig Brownlow mistook Hurley for the gunman, shooting and killing him.
Johnny did a heroic thing, but he didn't have to die from doing it.
Bolin filed that lawsuit against Officer Brownlow and Arvada Police Chief Link Strait.
Until Arvada can at least acknowledge that it's wrong, that its officers violated the law, then we're never going to see any change.
The lawsuit alleges that Arvada officers did not respond to the gunman properly and instead stayed in their nearby administrative office. It also alleges that Officer Brownlow did not present himself as an officer to Hurley, while Hurley was allegedly unloading the gunman's rifle.
Johnny did what they were supposed to do. He didn't wonder who was shot or how they were shot.
The lawsuit also questions describing the suspect on that day, the shooter in a black shirt, Hurley in a red shirt.
We think this lawsuit will also show that that violation was caused by Arvada's deficient policies and training.
The DA, Alexis King, determined no criminal charges would be brought against Officer Brownlow. Officer Brownlow resigned from the department.
Which is crazy. He's not getting any kind of punishment for what he did. He literally wrongly assumed that Johnny was the suspect. He was the murderer, and he wasn't. He was just doing what he's trained to do. I mean, the guy that he shot, the suspect was going to be a mass murderer, possibly. He already killed one. And the guy stopped him, and he was unloading the dude's gun. And it's just the dumbness of police officers again, all over again.
Earlier this year in, quote, good standing. Bolin is hoping for a change in policy.
Instead of always living in the space of grief, I've been able to add other feelings, which is pride. I'm proud of what my son did.
So the city of Arvada said the lawsuit mischaracterized the incident and referred back to to DA King's decision not to charge the officer, which then called the officer's actions justified. The city also said Officer Brownlow's actions were consistent with policy, and the police department is not considering changes to its training response or protocols right now, Kim and Tom.
Right. So they killed a guy who was doing his job. Like, these people want to claim like Second Amendment rights. I get to have my gun and protect myself. You know, a good guy with a gun can beat a bad guy with a gun. But then when it actually happens, the police kill the good guy anyway. Like, you're really causing the mentality of Americans to really mess up. Jesus Christ, to really fuck up. Like, you're telling us that we should, good guy with a gun can beat a bad guy with a gun. When it actually happens, the cop ends up killing the bad guy. Oh, I'm excited. I know, I see all that. Hey, you guys, weed check, everybody, in the morning. Look what I just found. Jizzoints, baby. I'm so excited. Got some joints. We're gonna have fun today. But yeah, so this is what happens. Like, this is a good guy with a gun ends up getting killed by the police officer when all he was doing was protecting a civilian. And they're not doing anything to the cop. They're not going to change the training. They're not going to give the guy punishment. They're not going to do anything to this guy. This guy gets to retire. So
That's
unfair.
The first time we've heard from Johnny Hurley's mom.
Absolutely. First thing I asked was how this last year has been treating her, as well as why she decided to talk to us today. She did refer back to that first memorial service around a month ago, 400 people attending that service, and friends from high school, from out of state even showing up. So a lot of community support over the last year.
It was such a violent day. We all remember it well, but we also remember, this year now, these evolving emotions. And now, of course, it'll start to wind its way into the courts as well.
Right. And there's still no date set yet for when this could make it before a judge, for example, but we'll have to see down the line how this turns out.
Yeah. When you look back, as Tom points out, what happened that day and how quickly Johnny acted and didn't hesitate to act.
Yeah.
And that's the tough thing.
The word hero, as we've heard for Johnny Hurley, has been used so much over the last year. So,
all right, Luis. Thanks.
And our top story tonight in
so
Old Town.
there's that one. And then Luke, I'll show a little bit of Luke's thing, because he did a really good job on talking about this as well. Here we go.
still can't believe actually transpired and happened. That is absolutely surreal. Without further ado, here it is. This is Lukardowski of wearechange.org here in Arvada, Colorado, a site where over a year ago there was an event that unfolded here that is not getting enough media attention. A lunatic, a madman, got some body armor, an AR-15, and he tried to commit a mass shooting event here inside of this square. He was stopped by someone that I knew, Johnny Hurly of We Are Change, Colorado. My friend Bruce knew Johnny a lot more than I did. Bruce, can you walk us through what happened here on that fateful day for this crazy event that again needs to be talked about a lot more than it originally has been?
Yeah, thanks for covering it, Luke, and thanks everybody for watching and helping keeping Johnny's story alive. So right behind me at this Arvada surplus store, Johnny Hurly was doing some getting ready for a camping trip, and he heard shots fired. And so what Johnny did that day, June 21st, 2021, was something that many of us could say we would do, but would we actually do it? We don't know until that moment. Johnny heard shots fired. He immediately drew his concealed and carry pistol, and he went sprinting across this square. And so we're going to walk across the square and tell Johnny's story. Johnny was an activist with We Are Change Colorado, a very outspoken person of, professing sovereignty and freedom and just being able to speak truth to power on so many of these issues online where others were silent. He was right away calling it out. Johnny was somebody who was always saying he would protect if he was needed to. And so that fateful day, there was a guy, Ronald Troike, that came to shoot a cop, and he actually shot Officer Gordon Beasley right where we're standing right here. And it was tragedy. And what Johnny did was run across this square, and he ran to this brick wall here, and he took a cover, and he shot the shooter. 6 shots, five of them hit, and he shot the shooter before the shooter could hurt anyone else. Now, what happened after that is the big tragedy here, because the cop, that this guy was very angry. This Ronald Troike guy was very angry at a cop that had, had an arrest with a homeless man a week prior, and he was coming to go to war with the Arvada Police Department. And so what's weirdly ironic is that the cop that pissed off the shooter originally was the cop that shot Johnny in the back without warning that day.
And there's, a lot of important details here that need to be shared. There's still bullet holes in that restaurant, even though this incident happened, a couple months ago. There's other aspects of this story that I think are very important to talk about before we talk to other friends of Johnny Hurly over there. But another important aspect here is that there's this lunatic wasn't just going after one cop. He wanted to hurt as many people as possible, wanted to go on a mass shooting, killing spree. He had a rifle. He shot and killed one officer. He wanted to hurt more. Johnny intervened, stopped him. What happened then? Because there was some contention, there was some back and forth. The police weren't up front at first. They weren't giving us the details. They weren't telling us what was happening here. They were stalling a lot of the very important questions of what people demanded to know and understand happened here. And then what happened here after Johnny took down this threat? Because this is an important aspect of the story.
So Ford Fisher made a documentary about this, and I really recommend typing in Johnny Hurly documentary, and we'll put the link below. But, thank you to Ford Fisher for making the documentary. There was a lot of contention over whether Johnny picked up the AR-15 or not, because it just didn't seem like something he would do. But after talking to his conceal and carry trainer, that it is that you are supposed to completely remove the threat. And so he was trained to go and unload the weapon. And so we didn't really believe it because we just couldn't believe that Johnny would pick up the AR, and we couldn't believe that how could the cop shoot him, in the back, whatever. And so actually, come to find out, he did pick up the weapon, and he had his pistol in one hand, and he had the butt of the gun on his knee, and he was chambering it. He was removing the rounds from the AR-15. And so we did find that out, but it took them 5 months to release this information. I mean, for the first few days, they wouldn't explain.
So it sounds almost like the Uvalde shooting cover up as well. The police are trying to save their asses because they made a fuck up. This is huge. This should be some huge news, but I have never even heard of this before I watched this video yesterday. So it's absolutely wild. They shot him in the back while he was unloading the chambers of this gun.
Who shot Johnny? It took him 4 days to release that the police actually shot Johnny, when they knew that all along. They were just making sure that it didn't hit the mainstream media that weekend, because it was a pro-gun story. It was a good guy with a gun who went and took out the shooter. They just didn't want the thing to be heard that it was the cop that shot Johnny in the back that ruined the day. Yeah. And so come to find out, yes, they did. Johnny did pick up the AR-15. That doesn't give them any right to shoot. They had ID'd the shooter wearing all black. He had a shotgun, then he went and got an AR-15, but he had boots on, he had a big hat on. He didn't look like Johnny. Johnny was way younger, wearing shorts, wearing a ball cap, wearing red. Like Johnny was not the shooter, and so yes, of course the cops could say, oh, well, we thought there was a second shooter, but all they had to do was say freeze. All they had to do was say, put your gun down, don't move, anything, and Johnny would have, he would have put his gun down. There was no way. And so that was a big mistake. And those cops are protected by some law. I think it's like Garner versus Tennessee or something, or Tennessee versus Garner, that they're able to shoot to protect themselves. They don't have to say anything. And so that's one of the things we have to look at, like the trainings of concealed carriers. You know, we need to look at adjusting those trainings, and the training of the police where they just shoot first, ask questions later. That has to stop. And that's one of the things.
And see, these are the friends of his, the people that are a part of this, that knew the guy, are calling for a change in the system, a change in the training of the police officers. But just as we watched in the video before, on the news video, they're not changing anything. They decided nothing needs to be changed, that everything's good, that they're still allowed to do this kind of stuff.
We kind of, as we're talking about this issue, we want to keep Johnny's story alive, and we want to help not scare other, conceal and carry people from being the hero. We want to make sure that we inspire people to be the hero and step up when they're needed, because that's what we need more of in this world, is heroes, and we don't need more cowards.
Well, clearly what the police officers did here was a travesty of injustice, since I remember hearing about this story, wanting to find out what happened, and literally some of the stories and rumors that were going on there was that there was an exchange between this sociopath, this crazy person, and Johnny. We didn't know what happened because the police were tight-lipped about the details. They weren't sharing anything, and then only later down the line we found out exactly what happened here. And the details matter here because Johnny took down the threat over here, came here, took the AR-15 away from the lunatic, went into this corner, and then on his knees right here made sure that he wasn't in a wide area, made sure that he wasn't a threat to anyone. You guys actually put up stickers of Johnny here because this is sadly where Johnny has, has lost his life. But Johnny went here, kneeled down, and was making sure that he was taking the bullets out of the rifle. Is that correct?
That's correct. And actually right here is the doorway where Arvada police were renting out this building at the time, which they currently aren't renting out anymore. But they opened that door. This Officer Brownlow opened that door and shot Johnny three times, and it only hit him once. It hit him once right in his, and then they let him bleed out. And that's also part of the tragedy, is that they didn't apply any medical attention to Johnny. And so he didn't pass away for another 30-something, 40-something minutes. And so that's another piece of this, the puzzle. And
that
it's
is
really
so
sad because,
disgusting. And that's the part that pisses me off too. It's like, even if it's like a suspect or something, you shot him, you just leave them there to die. Like they could still be alive. It's still a human life. It's still a living being, Yeah, it's absolutely terrible what happened to this guy.
Now, at this point, the only course of action we have is just to wait for the family's lawsuit to continue to go through. And so right now, the Hurley family is suing the city and county of Arvada and the police department for a big claim it's a wrongful death case, and Johnny should be here with us to tell the story today.
Yeah, this is an infuriating story because Johnny, again, went above and beyond, saved many people's lives that day. He was an absolute hero. And he did everything he could to make sure that he wasn't looking like he was a threat. Because there's other aspects of this story. There's people also telling me, he was running around with an AR-15. That's why he got shot by cops. No, he was in a corner making sure he wasn't a threat to anyone, unloading the rifle, making sure the rifle couldn't be used against anyone else. And that's when cops came in and then just shot him. This is absolutely just angering and bewildering. To talk about what we're doing moving forward, we, of course, have friends of Johnny Hurly here who have joined us today for this particular broadcast to share their grievances, to share their concerns, to share their questions. What do you guys want to tell to the people out there specifically about Johnny, who he was, and how we could remember him?
I'd just like to point out what an amazing, loving human being he was, and how he loved everybody,
Okay, now they're just doing like a little memorabilia of him on the rest of this. So that's what happened to Johnny. That's who Johnny was. Johnny was a guy who volunteered for wearechange.org in a selective area. He decided to do what is supposed to be legal, conceal and carry, take out a person, take care of, if the police aren't there, like what happened in that, like the grocery store shooting, where that security guard tried to stop the guy and the guy ended up shooting the security guard and killing him too. It's like every time somebody tries to do something good to stop something bad from happening, something ends up bad happening to the person. This was an example where actually it ended up he stopped the suspect, stop anything from going further, and was taking care of the danger and getting rid of the danger. And the cops just right there in that building just opened up a door and shot him, just bam, 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 3 times. And then just let him lay there to die for 30 to 40 minutes. It's disheartening. It's disgusting. It's horrible. I can't believe that the police are not even changing their ways or changing anything. The man's not in trouble. He was able to retire with no problems. It's gross and disgusting to me that that this happened. I can't believe that this isn't even like bigger news either. You would think that, this would be a lot larger a news report. So that's that. I hope you guys were interested in that. I hope that was a good story for you guys. Really sad information, really sad outcome. The guy was pretty much a hero. So yeah, I'm pretty upset about it. I am running low on things. I'm going through them way too fast today. I've got 2 more things to go over. Maybe I'll get off here a little bit early today. I know I think Amber sent me some really good stuff this morning too. So maybe we might watch that as well. Okay. No, don't play it. Don't play it. All right. So I was watching this last night and I found out that during a time during the Philippine American War, that the soldiers decided to grab a couple of some people that lived in the Philippines, hung them upside down. Right. Yeah, no worries. Get off as early. Yeah, because I still have your show tonight to do too. So yeah, I'm still trying to wake up. So the CIA faked a vampire attack to take over. It was just one of the one of the many things that they did, that American soldiers did in the Philippines to kind of try to take over that country. They hung these Filipinos up, hung them by their feet, and poked 2 holes into their necks and then let them drain themselves to where they died. And so the people there were very superstitious. And so they started to believe that there was vampires, and they started to run away from the thing. Now, this is just this guy talking. I swear I had a better one. So we can learn about like a better version, I guess, instead of just listening to this guy just talk throughout the whole thing. There it is. Okay. Cool. I found it. All right. So here's a little, a quick video about them doing that. So Aswangs of the CIA in Philippines. Here we go.
Before the Aswang myth would be taken once again by the people of the Philippines, there would be one more dark blemish in the long history of it being used as a tool of propaganda to inflict fear on the opposition of the controlling powers.
The Philippine culture is that every time that anybody had anything against the government, your only recourse was to become a bandit and go up to the mountain, go to the forest, and become an outlaw. We're still into Robin Hood.
In the 1950s, during the Magsaysay era, when the Hukbalahap was being dismantled by Magsaysay with the help of Colonel Lansdale. And one of the strategies or tactics that they were doing was to spread the Anaswang scare.
They were trying to get them to get out of the jungle and come down to refugee centers so that the guerrillas would not be able to move around, and the people wouldn't leave. So what the guy did is they finally grabbed one hold of a guerrilla. Maybe they didn't. They just got hold of some poor villagers, stuck 2 holes in their jugulars, hung them upside down, bled them to death, and then just put their bodies everywhere and started the rumor that there was this aswang. And so they were driven further back, and they broke their backs through Psy War, through Aswang War.
The Aswang as a form of social control is different from the Aswang as a supernatural being.
At one point in the dictatorship of Marcos, we called them Aswangs. I mean, there was this, equating them with the Aswangs. There was a postcard that had Mark Ferdinand and Imelda had this at the back, the wings of an Aswang and all that, I mean, we use it as symbolism.
I mean, have you guys ever seen like the bats in that country? The bats in that country is like wild to me. They have some crazy looking bats over there. So yeah, that's like, I was like, okay, I can see how they can get like superstitious about vampires because of the bats and stuff. So here's the guy talking about it. I hope it's not too boring, because he just talks, and I kind of like stopped watching and then watched him and then stopped watching and then watched him. But we'll get a little bit of an idea about this, and then we'll watch the history of how the U.S. Took over the Philippines.
Theories, or at least conspiracy. Government began commandeering several countries in the region. Among their places of concern was the area of central Luzon, Philippines. However, but as always, thank you for watching. Now, the Philippines' relation with the United States has always been messy, but for the sake of this video, we're just going to look at World War II onwards. During the beginning of World War II, the majority of the Philippines were captured by the Japanese military. As soon as the imperial military had taken over the Philippines, they began to use its people and resources for the war effort. And not only did the people of the Philippines have things like their food and farms stolen by the Japanese, but in some cases, the military would even begin to steal their women and children. So, as you can imagine, several of the Philippine people began to fight back. The primary group of Philippine freedom fighters were known as the Hukbalahap. The Hukbalahap, also known as the Huk Rebellion, is an acronym that translates to the People's Anti-Japanese Army. During the war, the Americans would use the help of the Huks in order to destroy the Japanese holdouts that were within the Philippines. And as the Japanese began to clear out of the region, the Americans would begin to enlist the help of Filipino businessmen and elected leaders. However, this is where the problems begin. So during the beginning of World War II, before America got involved and Japan was taking over the Philippine Islands, several of the businessmen and politicians tried to earn the favor of the Japanese so that they would have a more favorable outcome as the war progressed. So in the first years of the war, several of these leaders and landlords had allied themselves to the Japanese and would not only feed and house them, but give them advice about fighting their own people who were in the People's Anti-Japanese Army. So at the end of the war, whenever the US government was trying to reinstitute the Filipino government, and they did it using the pre-existing leaders of the Philippines, that doesn't go over well with the people who have been fighting them for the past 4 years, as you could imagine, because several of these leaders had helped the Japanese destroy their country, and then America comes in and says, yeah, these guys are still in charge. And while tensions were high, there was no direct violence, at least until 1946, when the leader of the PKM, a group that the Huks were allied to, was murdered. Then they decided to get violent again. They changed their name from the People's Anti-Japanese Army to the People's Liberation Army, but still went by the name of Huk. And as America was trying to make a new government for the Philippines, the Huks would smuggle weapons into the mountainside and begin to grow local resistance. It also didn't help the government's case that these local leaders who had previously had to do things under the watchful eye of the Japanese military were now pretty much given free rein by the Americans. So as soon as these leaders got power, they began to take a bunch of the food and resources from farmers and essentially just be a jerk to the peasant class that they didn't care for, which helped to increase support for the opposing Huk Rebellion. And by 1949, it's estimated that the Huks had anywhere from 11,000 to 15,000 active fighters. A couple things to note with this is, for one, whenever you read about the Huks in American or pretty much any official history text, they're kind of just called an offshoot of the Soviet Union and a directly communist strong arm of theirs in the Philippines, because during that time of the Cold War, the concern was between American capitalism and Russian communism. So anytime there was any problem or enemy that came up against America, they'd say, oh, well, they're just in league with the communists. And because of that, the Huks have gone down in history as a communist fighters group. And while the Huks were allies with the PKP, who was a group of fighters who were a part of the Soviet Union, all of the Huk fighters were like farmers who just didn't like having their stuff stolen. So while you could maybe argue that kind of was in line with some of the beliefs, they just didn't want to
Yeah,
get put.
boy, we gonna be here all day. What are you talking about? I'm still scheduled for another hour and a half, so we'll see. Yeah, I'm on here for 4 hours in the morning. Get you some groceries, come back, do what you got to do. I'll still be here. And then I'll be on again tonight with Warren. Just can't get rid of me this week. You will never be able to get rid of me ever.
Pushed around. So calling them a Soviet Union military organization is exaggeration at best. I should also mention that while everything I've said until this point paints the Hucks out to be just like these valiant freedom fighters fighting against the government, and while there were certainly elements of that, by 1949, the movement had become large enough that people would claim the name of the Huck Rebellion so that they could get away with things like murder and robbery. So while there definitely was a good cause, at least in the beginning, by 1949, 1950, the Hucks were seen as a bunch of rampant pillagers, at least around heavily populated areas. In the mountainside where the original Huck rebels were, there was more of a grassroots movement to help them, but that dissonance can't last long. Government is not being good to its people, and some of the people are acting a fool. Now, did the United States government care about this? No. They were concerned with the Russian threat, and everything they did was to advance that end, as we're going to see. So if America is going to have a position of power in the Philippines, which is a very strategic location for anything in Southeast Asia, then they're going to have to deal with this local infighting. So in 1950, the Pentagon sent one of their best men to the Philippines, Lieutenant Colonel Edward Lansdale. Now, if you're weird like I am and into crazy Cold War PSYOP stuff, Lansdale is a very familiar name. He wrote the book for what would become the majority of PSYOP tactics from Vietnam forward. He's also very instrumental in a lot of special forces training and tactics and adventures that they would go on later. And he was actually one of the founding members of the CIA. Before World War II, when he would join the military, Lansdale was an advertising executive in San Francisco. From that job, he developed knowledge as to how people's minds work and how to convince them of what you want them to think. So whenever he joined the military during World War II, he was sent to the Operation of Strategic Services, or the OSS, which after the war, the members of it created the Central Intelligence Agency, or the CIA. So Lansdale, one of the first ever CIA agents, gets to the Philippines in 1950.
I think we're about to get to the part of the story where they talk about vampires. So, hey, you two, stop fighting.
And creates something called the Civil Affairs Office. The Civil Affairs Office was a means for Lansdale to communicate with Filipino leaders of how they can best destroy the Filipino rebellion. As an expert in psychological warfare, Lansdale said that the best way to convince a people of what you want them to think is by using their own truths and ideas against them. So after analyzing the situation and speaking with other leaders, Lansdale determined that the majority of Filipino people were very superstitious and had a lot of religious beliefs tied to local tradition. So he decided that that is how he's going to get them. The first of these operations went as follows. On a cloudy day, he had someone fly a small airplane with a very large speaker attached to it. This airplane flew over the Philippine countryside, where it was believed that several of the locals were aiding and embedding Huck rebels. And from this large speaker flying through the clouds, played several curses in the locals' native language. These messages said that any collaborators who are helping the local rebels will have their family cursed and all of their belongings destroyed if they continue to aid them. And it seems that this worked, as in the following weeks.
That's how it got started, too. Like, they started flying planes over, saying curses, because the Filipinos were very superstitious people.
Several groups of Huck rebels turned themselves into the authorities because they were starving. See, typically with these guerrilla factions, they have to rely on the goodwill of others and create this underground network of supplies and shelter in order to sustain themselves. But now that these people were afraid of a curse and kicked them out, they had no other option but to turn themselves in or starve to death. So seeing that this was working, Lansdale doubled down. Lansdale had several men embedded into the local population in order to give him information as to where the Hucks were or what they were doing. So using this information, Lansdale began to get data on which specific houses were aiding the rebels. Then, under the cover of night, his agents would go out next to these houses and spray paint these large watching eyes on the streets around these houses. So imagine that you are
So that was another one of the tactics that they did, is the large eye, so that way they felt like they were being watched. Another form of superstition in the Philippines that they had. That's right, Jimmy TV, 24/7, baby.
Who is invading a group of rebels. And while you're supportive to their cause, you also have yourself and your family to look out for. And then one day you go to bed, and when you wake up, there are eyes painted all around your house. Would probably make you think twice about helping these guys out. So because of this, collaborators became more few and far between, and the Huck rebels had to more so rely on their own resources. And now that we've set the stage for all that, let's talk about the vampires. Now, the term vampire is a bit of an oversimplification of what actually happened. The Filipino people have a legend of a creature known as an aswang. Aswang itself is kind of an overarching term that can embody ideas from witchcraft to zombie-like risen dead people to demonic spirits or what have you. But the commonality seen throughout Aswang belief is that they are a blood-sucking creature who drains the blood of their victims, most often through a long tongue that shoots out and stabs people kind of like a mosquito. So Lansdale, having seen that flying a plane and pretending to be God worked, maybe they should try the vampire thing. Specifically, there was a mountaintop in central Luzon that was a strategic control point for the Huck rebels. And Lansdale decided to literally scare them out. So he had a couple of his men go to the villages around the mountain and begin talking of how they saw an aswang on the mountain nights prior. Sure enough, other rebels said that within the day, people in the town began to tell stories of how there is an aswang or demonic creature draining the blood of people in the forest around the mountain. So Lansdale waited a couple days, at which point he was sure that the information got back to the Huck rebels directly, and then decided to send a group to attack. So a couple nights after this story's been floating around, there is a group of Huck rebels on top of the mountain doing a patrol around the trails along the top of the mountain itself. And as they're patrolling, this group of hitmen sneak up on them. Whenever the patrol has their guard down, they grab the guy in the back of the patrol and drag him into the bushes. Once they've got a hold of him, they kill him and take two small puncturing devices. I'm not sure if it was like a screwdriver or what, but they put two holes into his neck and hung him upside down to drain all the blood from his body. Then once that's done, they threw his body back onto the trail where he went missing so that whenever his guys come looking for him, they find his body drained of blood with two puncture holes in the neck. So yes, with no exaggeration, straight from their own admittance and declassified records, the CIA staged a vampire attack on this random Filipino freedom fighter. And perhaps even more surprisingly, it worked. The next day, the entire rebel force cleared off of the mountain. Now, is this because they thought that an aswang was attacking them and may kill their entire camp? Possibly. But also, like, if I was with a group of friends and we were camping on a mountain and we thought that one of us had been killed by a vampire, we would probably leave. But if I was with a group of friends on top of the mountain and we thought that some random dude killed our friend and staged it to look like a vampire, we would also probably leave. And yeah, it can be safely assumed that at least some people thought it was an aswang. At the same time, a lot of people probably thought that it was the CIA killing them and draining their blood, which is also a pretty good reason to get out of there. From here, psychological operations continued in the Philippines for some time to come. And while everyone likes to remember the flying plane threatening curses at people and the giant eyes and obviously the vampire attack, there were a lot of other psychological operations that had the same, if not greater, effect. For example, Lansdale began a radio show that people in the mountains for the first time could hear directly from their leaders how they're trying to rebuild the country. Lansdale made sure that government officials were no longer being abusive to the locals, which again, if the locals feel like they're not being oppressed, they don't really have the need to support a group of freedom fighters. And several government leaders would dress up and pretend to be Huck rebels and go through villages stealing food and yelling at people. So as villagers began to think that the government was beginning to have their best interests and be supportive, while the Hucks were murdering people and acting like jerks, half legitimate, half government officials dressed up as Huck rebels, then support for the Huck Rebellion began to die out. It was also about this time, again around 1953, that the Filipino government was like, wow, thanks America, we sure are glad you helped us out with those rebels. You can go ahead and leave whenever you want. And the CIA was like, yeah, leave. While Lansdale was there, he became friends with someone known as
Can you believe that shit? Like, people actually got scared and stuff. Oh, so you've heard this story before, Holly? I've never heard it before yesterday. So yeah, going vamping. That's wild to me that they were able to like succeed and scare them out of an area by, and it just shows how like dirty the CIA is too. Fucking dirty tactics right there.
Say. During Lansdale,
You guys are going to be even more mad when you find out how we took over the Philippines afterwards too. Just wait.
Operations in the country, Raymond was the head of their Department of Defense, and Raymond aided Lansdale in his operations in the Philippines. So the two became friends whenever Lansdale was doing his operations, and around 1952 he says, "Hey Raymond, why don't you run for president?" And Raymond says it's a great idea and begins to run. But as soon as he does, he quickly realizes that it's not him running for president, it's the CIA running for president. Raymond was used as a puppet, and everything from his speeches to his policies were decided by the US government. To ensure Raymond's election, the CIA began running smear campaigns against all of Raymond's opponents. Everything from rumors in the paper to spiking their drinks before they gave a speech in order to make them look unfavorable to the public. One day, before he gave a speech, Raymond suggested that perhaps this time, instead of Lansdale and the CIA giving him a speech, maybe Raymond could write his own speech or have one of the locals help him write his speech. And Lansdale got so mad that he began to hit Raymond to the point that Raymond was knocked out. By the time Raymond was elected in 1953, he was so battered and scared of the US government that he sent a message directly to President Eisenhower that said, "I will do."
All right, enough hearing him talking. Let's watch how the US stole the Philippines, which is wild to me how they were able to do it. Just the scheming and the corruption and the way that they were able to do this. This is a really, really, really good one right here.
There is a cluster of 7,000 islands that looks like one of the most beautiful places on Earth. People have been living here for over 30,000 years, traveling between these islands, trading with each other and with the region, and developing religion, identity, and culture. It eventually became a country called Whaat. And while all of these advancements were happening here on these islands, another group of humans had been evolving in another part of the world, over here in Europe. But this other group had a different culture, a different religion. Many of their advancements were achieved through expansion, not collaboration. And their religion thrived when they stomped out others. They wanted to conquer. These people, this culture would soon be swallowed, stripped of what made them them. And soon their name would be changed after the name of the king of their conquerors. This isn't a story just about a big, powerful military taking over new lands. We know that story pretty well. The story of these people offers a new perspective to anyone who will listen. It's a perspective that has been wiped from our history books because of the inherent discomfort and tension with this fact that the United States, once a colony that heroically threw off an empire to become independent, soon became an empire itself. It contradicts our founding belief that
that's so true too. Like these people that left England so that they can become their own independent people ended up just becoming the empire themselves. It's such a sad thing to see what happened to the white people. But then they did this to themselves too. Like look at the way they treated people of color and stuff. So Stephen Kinzer had a great book out about the dialogue in the U.S. at the end of the 19th century about whether the U.S. should start acquiring colonies. Mark Twain was a leader in the anti-colonial camp. Yeah, this is definitely, they're going to talk about all the, he's going to talk about all the other ones too, like Cuba and what we did to the other ones, and then Philippines. So it's a really good story. I watched a couple other videos on it to see like some people from the Philippines that have written books about all of this stuff. And they were saying like most of the stuff, like 99.9% of the stuff that he's saying in here is absolutely correct.
It's, quote, self-evident that all men are created equal. And this story isn't just history. That empire still exists today with colonial possessions and subjects. It's all wrapped up in the story of these 7,000 islands and their people. So I want to tell you the story of how the U.S. stole the Philippines.
There are still American citizens today who do not have equal voting rights. These are citizens of America's island territories.
The U.S. Constitution grants citizenship to everyone born on U.S. soil except in one jurisdiction.
Quick pause, because I want to tell you about something that is important to me and
Hold on, let me skip through this really quick because it's an ad. There we go.
This video could be called How Spain Stole the Philippines, since Spain was the first nation to conquer and control these islands like 500 years ago. Actually, exactly 500 years ago. And indeed, Spain left a very deep influence on these islands, not least the name itself, which is named after King Philip. Spain brought their religion, their language, their culture, which is why the most common last names in the Philippines are like Reyes or Del Rosario, De la Cruz, De los Santos. But the heyday of the Spanish Empire came and went, and by the 1800s, it was kind of crumbling. But it was the arrival of a new superpower that I believe had a bigger imprint, not just on the Philippines, but on the US itself. It established rules and behaviors that we still grapple with today. And that's why this is the story of how the US stole the Philippines. So let's go.
To this day, we can see the traces of the almost 400 years of Spanish rule over the Philippines. But even more striking is the more recent influence of the United States.
Okay, so it's the end of the 1800s. Up until now, US expansion sort of looks like this. It's all happening on this mainland. And at this point, there sort of became a big debate of like, do we keep going? Some people wanted to keep expanding the US outside of this mainland. The president at the time wasn't a big expansion guy, but he was surrounded by people who loved war, specifically this guy. And these people
I agree. I agree with you, Sherry, or Holly as well. That's a good statement right there, Sherry. We should have stuck with that. Yeah, for sure.
People who surrounded the president had their eye on this Spanish colony right off the American coast called Cuba, where the locals were rising up against Spain. Wait a minute, isn't this a video about the Philippines? Why are we talking about Cuba? We're getting there in just a second, okay? So anyway, Cuba. Americans didn't want to go to war with Cuba. They're like, we don't need more war. But thanks to the explosion of an American submarine in Cuba, which was probably an accident, and thanks to some highly unethical journalism that blamed the explosion on Spain,
Mainstream media starting us in wars since the 1800s. Crazy, right? Like, crisis is at hand, Spanish treachery. Like, this ship probably fell by accident. And they're like, it's Spain's fault over in Cuba. We need to go help protect Cuba and liberate them and give them freedom. Swear, man, the mainstream news since at least the 1800s has been trying to turn us into a direction that they want us to go in. It's wild.
And a big thanks to, again, this guy, Teddy Roosevelt, who at this point was just a peon. He was literally the Assistant Secretary of the Navy. But he somehow cajoled his boss's boss, the President of the United States, to go to war in Cuba to like liberate the Cubans from Spain. So the US declared war on Spain in 1898. But this begins a new era of war in the United States. No longer can you just go into war and just like take over land. You need an angle. You need to sell the war to the American people. So the angle on this war was liberation. We're liberating the people.
The people you liberate will witness the honorable and decent spirit of the American military.
You got to love the word salad that they give you, right? Let's liberate these people. And obviously, as you could tell, we were using the words liberate for Cuba and the Philippines and the islands back then. And you see right here in 2003, like over 100 years later, President Bush announces the start of Iraq war, talking about how we were going to liberate the people of Iraq. Did we liberate the people of Iraq? Is that what we did when we killed Saddam Hussein? We liberated them? Because I'm pretty sure like everything that's going on over there is still just as bad. I love how we've been falling for this shit for over 100 years. Like, I hope people start waking up when we hear, like, listen to the words that they say when they talk about these things. Because when they're like, I'm going to liberate these people. We're going to help them, give them freedom. We're U.S. military, financial aid to Ukraine. This word salad. It's little like floofy words to help you be okay with it. Mainstream propaganda is what it is.
No. That's later. We're talking about 1898. But yes, the whole idea of selling war to the American public didn't really go away after this. Why did the U.S. go to war in Iraq?
In the early stages of military operations.
So anyway, the U.S. is now at war with Spain, which is an empire that is deeply in decline, as I mentioned. It's not going to be hard to win. But soon, it's not just Cuba. The US, really meaning Teddy Roosevelt, who again is just an assistant secretary of the Navy. He's like not a big decision maker. He somehow maneuvers the situation to say like, let's liberate next door Puerto Rico. And while we're at it, let's go into the Pacific and liberate Guam and the Philippines from Spain as well. Teddy didn't even ask his boss to do this. He literally sent off a cable to the Navy commander in Asia that was like, George Dewey, go attack the Philippines where Spain is. That is what your mandate is. And George Dewey's like, okay, I'm being told to go to war with Spain and the Philippines. Teddy was sort of the mind, like, better to ask forgiveness than permission. I mean, I get that, but...
That is so well put, Ghost Art. Absolutely. Like 100% agree with that. War sells, and we've cornered that market so well. It's wild. But then it just goes to show like the gullibleness of the human mind. You repeat a word over and over and over again, and people are going to start using that word. Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of nuts that he pulled it off. Anyway, and now because of Teddy Roosevelt, who we literally named the teddy bear after, side note, we are at war not in the Caribbean only, but also in the Pacific. The US arrives to the Philippines and sees that the locals had already been fighting against the Spanish for like years. The Spanish were weak and were totally declining. So it's like the top of the 9th inning or like the 4th quarter of the Spanish in the Philippines. And the US shows up and is like, let us liberate you. And the Philippines were like, well, we've sort of already been fighting this bloody war for years against the Spanish. So yeah, I guess United States, if you want to come help us deal the final blow to Spain, like sweet. So George Dewey, this Navy commander, and his fleet show up to Manila. Meanwhile, back in the US, people are like, wait, weren't we just supposed to invade Cuba? What are we doing in the Philippines now? And the US government's like, because the Philippines is a perfect hub for commercial opportunities in Asia, and we think that if we don't take it, Japan or Germany might take it, which would clearly diminish our geostrategic advantage in the Pacific. No, they didn't say that. They said, we want to liberate the people of the Philippines. Liberate.
The people you liberate will witness the honorable and decent spirit of the American military.
So the Spanish see the US arrive to the Philippines and they're like, great, we're done. So the Spanish military commanders ask to meet with the US military commanders. They meet in secret, and Spain's like, listen, I know we're losing.
I'm absolutely loving the things that you're saying, Ghost Art. You just wait till we get a little bit further into this video and find out like what actually happened over there and how much like buffoonery and clown shit that the fucking America was actually doing even after all of this. This shit gets even better. Like the tea gets thicker, okay? We're about to have to chew on the tea after this.
But we really want to save some face here. We don't want it to look like we lost to the Filipino revolutionaries. And I'm not kidding. The Spanish commander literally said that he would, quote, be willing to surrender to white people, but not to the Filipinos.
Can you fucking believe the racism and the nasty disgustingness of these people? Even then, it's sickening. It just wait. The fucking shit show gets better.
So the US commander's like, okay, there's an opportunity here. We said we were here to liberate the Filipinos, but we haven't promised anything yet. So we would much rather it look like the US defeated Spain instead of helped the Filipinos defeat Spain. Much better for our brand, says the United States. So together, the United States and Spanish militaries organize a fake battle in which the US would fight the Spanish in Manila, and the Spanish would intentionally lose. And the climax of this whole theatrical battle, according to the plan, was that at the end, the US would storm towards the inner walled city of Manila, the last stronghold of where the Spanish are. Oh, and the key detail in this whole plan, they would not let the Filipino fighters, the ones that had been doing all the actual fighting against the Spanish, join them as they stormed towards the walled city to deal the final blows to the Spanish Empire. And
that's absolutely crazy, right? That's nuts to me. The Filipinos have been battling the Spain for hundreds of years. They were winning that war. They were they were winning it. And then all of a sudden, fucking US has got to stick their fucking finger in there. And then behind the Philippines' backs, they go to Spain and like, let's pretend to have a fight. You surrender. We look like we won. Bam, bam, thank you, ma'am. And the Filipinos are like, they see this fight, they're like, we want in on this fight. We've been fighting this thing for hundreds of years. This is our fucking war. This is our fight. We're winning. And what does the US and Spain do? They keep them away so they can't see what's actually happening because it was a fake fight anyways. It was pretend. The whole thing was phony. Just wait.
this would mean that the Filipinos technically didn't gain their independence. It was actually the US who conquered the Spanish. And then the Spanish were like, oh, can you give us $20 million for our troubles? And the US was like, yeah, sure.
This is the part where I read that's I mean, it is true, but not in this way. I guess what happened is the US ended up buying Manila from Spain for $20 million, and Spain just went back home. Like, Spain didn't ask for 20 million. US just wanted to buy this up so that they can own it themselves. And then Spain just left. But this really happened. Like, this actually happened. So in their eyes, with the whole situation, is the Filipinos never got their actual freedom, because to them, they didn't win the war, even though they've been fighting it for hundreds of years. This fake fight, which was all just a fucking show and wasn't even a real fight, made it look like they end up beating Spain. And so the Philippines didn't even get what they wanted. Like, they didn't even get their victory. It's such bullshit to me. I mean, I couldn't even imagine, just even on like something happening like that on a personal scale. I'd be beating some fucking earth. It'd be done. Motherfuckers be done. How dare you? The fucking caucasity of it all, I swear. Yeah, exactly. Fucking ghost art. You're on a roll today. Filipinos are barred from the movie set. For sure. Can you believe that? They've been really dying and shit for hundreds of years. And there's like, they want to finish it off, but it's a movie set and they can't even get fucking in. Yeah. No, you're right. You're on fire today, Ghost Art. Damn.
So now the US wins the war and they claim sovereignty over the Philippines. So yeah, this happened. They did the fake battle. They won the war. Instead of liberating the Filipinos, they just say, hey, we're your new colonizers. Psych. Meanwhile, back in the United States, they got to keep up this white savior.
Such a great thing to say. Psych. Like, we actually aren't really liberating you. We're just, now we're colonizing you. After, you know, they've been in this war and doing this with Spain for so long, that you would assume that Americans living their everyday lives in America aren't even thinking about this war anymore. Like, it's probably past their thoughts now. They're done. You know, they're probably hearing about it or something, or like, or the whole like, whatever happened to the Philippines? What did we do over there? I wonder. You know, back then they didn't have the internet. All they had was the newspaper. So whatever the newspaper decided to tell them, that's what they would know, and that's it. So it'd probably just end up, you know, out of sight, out of mind with these people, and Americans just didn't even think about it anymore. Yeah, the Zelensky green. I've been hearing about that. I gotta watch it or something. Yeah, I saw that. Saw something about that.
Liberation narrative that they created to justify going to war with Spain. So you see a lot more theatrical PR by the government. They staged this giant military parade in New York City, where this military commander who did the fake war, George Dewey, marches down. They called it Dewey Day. It was like a 2-day parade in New York City. They created a big like military arch for him. He became like a military hero for having like liberated all these people from the Spanish. And then you start to see these like crazy advertisements, like this soap advertisement that has
so they, you know, that's what they did. That's what the people found out. They didn't hear anything about the war. And then all of a sudden they had, you know, the government had this huge thing for the cities and for America, these parades, and strutted them down the street and made these huge arches, and even had national, you know, Dewey Days, which is the guy that had the whole fake thing and the fake war with Spain. It's just wild to me, the buffoonery and the extravaganza that they put on for all of us Americans, when it was all a fucking lie. Like, every one of it. It was fake. It was phony. Hey, dogs. Oh, you guys are over there. Hi. Sorry, I thought you were in the room making noise. I think that was the cats. My life. Sorry, Pops. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. What do you want, Miss Lady? Come on. Come on. Oh, get your wily butt up here with me and hang out. You too, Dodger? Just don't throw up. Oh, you two are just going to fight, though. See? I'll let you guys. It's so hard to have like two animals right here because I'm not on a couch or a chair, not like a rocking chair. I'm on a high heel chair. It's a chair that's shaped like a stiletto. So there's not a lot of room for multiple animals, just one. But Dodger over there wants my husband though, because he likes to hang out with boys. So he's like freaking out. Okay.
George Dewey, the commander, washing his hands with the caption, quote, "The first step towards lightening the white man's burden is through teaching the virtues of cleanliness." And on the sides, you have soap being offloaded in the Philippines and being given to the locals. The US had to frame this not as conquest, but as the honorable duty of the US to civilize these people, or in the words of the soap ad, quote, "to brighten the dark corners of the earth."
Tell me that's not disgusting. So from what I heard from a video that I was watching last night, a Filipino guy reacting to this video himself, he said that that the Filipinos thought that Americans' cleanliness was actually really bad for you. They were used to, you know, walking around barefoot, cleaning themselves in the natural waters. So like all this extra stuff was actually taking away the like your immunities and, you know, being able to fight off whatever's out there and stuff. So they thought that, you know, Americans were crazy. So that's why Americans went there and was like, let's civilize the savages and make them clean. And so like that was us actually secretly trying to whitewash and colonize that country by telling Americans that we're civilizing them and we're cleaning the earth of the dark edges and just that disgusting like white power racist rhetoric that they've been having and always have. It's so disgusting to me.
Jeez, this is insane and was not that long ago. Okay, so this is where things really heat up. It's 1900 now. Spain loses the war, obviously, and the US now owns Puerto Rico, Guam, and they claim the Philippines. But the local Filipinos who have been fighting for their freedom for years are like, no. You just waltzed in here on our rebellion and conspired with the Spanish to make it look like you were liberating us. No, this is our country. We don't need another colonizer. And this is where things really heat.
As they should. That's what they should have done. They did right on themselves.
Yeah. The Filipinos start fighting again for their independence, and this time against the United States. It is a pretty horrible, bloody war, one that I never learned about in school. It includes massacres of men, women, and children by the United States, and hundreds of thousands of civilian deaths. But the US eventually won.
So that's around the time that the US was using those psyops that we were watching earlier, the giant eye paintings flying in the sky, telling them that they're cursed, the vampire rumors that got around on that mountain villages. This was their psyop. That was part of the fighting with the Philippines. Dodger, stop! Holy crap, you sound like you're dying, dude. You're gonna make me look horrible. You're literally just right here next to me, not doing anything. Just stop. Holy crap, that is annoying. Sorry. I've had my sister's dog for months now, and I'm so over it. What do you got to say? Hollywood swinging, remember the beheading production? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, didn't we live stream Saddam Hussein's hanging? That was in the 2000s. So not like we're any better. Do I have to squirt you? I will start squirting you, bro. Holy shit. He's like, I like it. Give me some more water. So yeah, this is around the time that they had those psyops. This was the war. A couple things that he was leaving out, like they practically genocided the country. Like the battle was horrible and disgusting and brutal. Tons of Philippines died, millions. I've heard like up to 2 million or so Filipinos died out there. And this was their population in the 1900. Like 1900 was their population. Like if you're losing that many people, that's a majority. That's practically a genocide to me in my head. So.
And they established a government in the Philippines. Back in the US, the appetite for expansion continued to go down and people sort of just forgot about the Philippines. They forgot that there was a war there. One newspaper summed it up by saying Americans didn't know if the Philippines were islands or canned fruit. But the fact remained that the US went to war and now owned the Philippines in addition to Puerto Rico and Guam. So this begged a very important question, one that hadn't been asked before, which is all of this land America? Are these people Americans? This was a huge question. And the answer to that question affects how we see these territories still today. Okay, so a few years after these wars, there's a guy in New York City who's importing oranges from one of these territories, Puerto Rico. And he's paying tariffs on these imports because, you know, that's what you do when you're importing oranges from another country. Wait a minute, another country? This guy was like, didn't we conquer Puerto Rico and Guam and the Philippines? Isn't that America? The Constitution says that you can't put tariffs on stuff coming from other parts of the US. Like New Jersey can't put tariffs on like avocados from California. So he sued, and his case and a bunch of others like it made it to the Supreme Court. So now the Supreme Court must decide, is this land where we just want...
So pretty much it takes like a rich white dude to not want to be charged of bringing fruit that's made from slave wages into his country and wants to be charged less. So that's what gets the attention of maybe possibly having at least heard from the Supreme Court about these islands being a part of the US, which they shouldn't. They should be their own independent nations.
Won a war. Is this America? Are these Americans? If they are, do they get all the same rights as other Americans? Do they get to vote? Do they get to participate in the US economy without tariffs, like any other state does? And honestly, this isn't a question about oranges and tariffs. The real question at stake here is America the land of the free where all are created equal? Or are we an empire? No different than any other empire that scoops up colonial possessions in war and rules the people, who are usually black and brown, as subjects, not fully a part of the country. That was the question that was at stake. And in this series of cases in the early 1900s, the Supreme Court decided that America was the latter, is the latter. They created a new category of land called unincorporated territories, where the people don't have any...
Can you believe that? They, instead of at least giving them their own freedom back, you know, of course they wouldn't do that. But instead of turning them into like fully voting, you know, citizens of America just in islands, they said, no, we're going to call them unincorporated territories. I can't believe America. Like, again, the caucasity of it all, you know, it's pathetic to me. It's so disgusting.
Representation in a democracy, but where Congress could create laws on their own, particularly laws dealing with revenue, which would not be allowed by the Constitution for states within the Union. We can create revenue laws, stuff that's totally unconstitutional for other parts of our country. In other words, unincorporated territories are land we control and exploit for revenue, but whose people don't get to vote and don't get the right to trial by jury. So yeah, the Philippines, in addition to Puerto Rico and Guam, remained...
AKA, which he's leaving out, free slave labor wages and slave labor for the profits of Americans, and they don't get to be able to defend themselves and fight for it because they're non-voting citizens of America, but they get to create the laws of making them have the slave wages. I would be so pissed if I was any of them, man.
Unincorporated territories, a place that the US could kind of just ignore without a lot of consequence. They weren't important enough or strategic enough to be considered to become states like Hawaii or Alaska. So they sort of faded from American consciousness. Like, this is why we never heard about this in school. Like, it didn't make it into the history books in any salient way. And how far the Philippines had faded from people's mind became very clear in December of 1941. during World War II. The US had owned the Philippines for like 40 years when a fleet of Japanese bombers flew across the Pacific and bombed an American naval base in Hawaii. But what we don't really remember is on that day, Japan bombed Guam and the Philippines, 2 American territories, as well as several other American and British territories.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
Here's the draft of this speech. This is the original draft that FDR spent the day marking up before he gave it. Zoom in a little bit and you'll see on this draft that it mentioned the Philippines originally, but FDR crossed it out. He crossed out the mention of Manila. Yes, the Philippines was on some map somewhere. Yes, we technically owned it, but the people really didn't want to hear about it because these people weren't Americans. The Supreme Court had decided that. They weren't going to become states anytime soon. So why mention them? After that day.
That's so goddamn racist. I hate my country so much sometimes, I swear. I absolutely swear I do. And like, why are we never taught? Of course, I know why, because it's America, but like, we're never even taught that when Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, that it was to stop America from being able to protect the Philippines because they were trying to get the islands over there. That's what their real goal was. We were like a side thing for them, and we fucking nuked the shit out of them twice because of it. They didn't even want Hawaii. They wanted the islands, the Philippine Islands over there. And all they did was attack Pearl Harbor to stop the ships and backup to come and help the islands when they attacked the islands. And we nuked them twice. It's disgusting.
Japan actually full-on invaded the Philippines. They didn't do that to Hawaii, but they did to the Philippines until the end of the war, at which point the Philippines were finally granted independence in 1946. Fast forward to today, and this "we own you, but you're not really Americans" precedent established by the Supreme Court still applies to 4 million people who live in unincorporated.
So those are the places that still have it today. Obviously, as we know, the Philippines is independence itself. But we have the Mariana Islands, Guam, Samoa, Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands that are still having to live like that to this day. So, and I know the Somalian Islands we're fucking brutalizing over there.
Territories. Or let's just call it a spade. Let's call them what they are.
And also, I remember a few years ago, Puerto Rico was really like, when Bernie was running, he went over there and asked those people if they were wanting to be independent from America. And they were all screaming for that. They were wanting that independence.
They're colonial possessions. The people who live here don't experience the full rule of law. They don't get trial by jury. They don't have full representation in our democracy. And they don't get to vote for the president. This is why when a hurricane hits Puerto Rico, the government response is not nearly what it should be. The way Trump talked about Puerto Rico as almost another country, as not a part of us, mirrors exactly how the Supreme Court talked about these unincorporated territories. They're for revenue, not to compete with American farmers. We conquered these places, but we didn't want to bring the people fully into the American project. We left them out. And there they remain today.
That's so sad, right? Such a sad, sad thing that these people have to deal with because of us. The sun never sets on the U.S. empire. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So that's the story of the Philippines. I hope that was interesting. It definitely intrigued me when I watched it, especially because getting started with the whole PSYOP stuff, the vampires, like I could not even believe that it's real. But then I'm like, oh, well, it's the CIA. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure, that's just what they do. So, yeah. Okay, so my second to last one is this guy I
Some people
watched.
think Halloween.
So, geez, dude. He's got an
Some people think
Irish accent. So we'll have to, just deal with the listening to the Irish accent. I think it's great. So yeah, right. When Bernie was a Putin puppet, everybody's been a Putin puppet. Everybody is. But this guy's really did his research. Obviously he lives in Ireland, so he kind of knows like the origin stories of how, it's in his textbooks, and he can read this stuff and he can translate it to English. So he does a really good job on trying to explain the origins, the actual origin of Halloween. In his description, he writes, Halloween or Samhain, why witches, pumpkins, and spooky things? Are we really celebrating what our ancestors did, or has it all become a lot of commercial nonsense? Here I look at what Samhain was and what Halloween is, and the differences are, well, just watch the video. We touch on All Saints Day, All Souls Day, All's Hallow Eve to find out the actual day we should be celebrating something. So, and my dog is going to drive me insane, I swear. Okay, here we go.
Halloween took over from Samhain.
Oh.
Samhain was not originally celebrated
on the 31st of October, and Halloween is. Although things are a bit more complicated than that. That'll be so when we start adding in influence of Hallowmas, All Saints Day, and All Souls Day. So what is going on, and what are Halloween and Samhain all about? Is it really about witches and pumpkins, remembering the dead, or praising saints, or even the celebration of the supernatural? Well, if you want to know, then grab yourself a cup of tea, and welcome to Crackenford. If we look at what happens on the 31st of October, you could be forgiven for being very confused. Kids are dressed up for trick-or-treating, spooky decorations are spread inside and outside of houses, and some pagans even consider this their most important day of their year. And the reason for this is that over the last couple of thousands of years, culture and environmental changes have created changes in beliefs and behaviours, and so this has influenced the rituals of Halloween and other similar days, leaving us now with a festival that is beyond recognition from what actually went on 2,000 years ago. And the best way to try and work out what was there is by taking away the things that were added. And to do that, we will start with the Abrahamic Church.
Of course, when you talk about Halloween and, who overtook and who made it what it looks like now, it's always got to be the church, man. It's always got to be the church. Even though the church doesn't really celebrate Halloween or anything, they celebrate like Harvest Festival, which is, I guess, kind of closer to what Samhain was and all of the harvesting things and stuff compared to what we think of Halloween, like dressing up and trick-or-treating, even though that has to do with some of this stuff too. Changed. Definitely don't get candy and stuff, but we'll watch.
And for this context, we really are talking about Christianity due to its European influence. Now, Christianity doesn't recognise Halloween as a religious festival, and indeed, many people within these religions would not support the partaking in these celebrations, which is also one of the reasons the day has become so diverse. It is not adopted by any large formal body, and so rituals and behaviours are not governed. They are decided by popular ideas, popular culture. Why is this? Well, it is a fine line Christianity takes. There is no specific doctrine of the church that says you can't believe in the supernatural. In fact, to partake in communion of a Catholic church, you do have to acknowledge the existence of a Holy Ghost. That is what the church literally calls the third Godhead. You have God, Jesus, and the Holy Ghost. And so saying, don't celebrate the paranormal would be a bit hypocritical, although some members of the church have, in fact, said just that.
Right. That made me think about that when I watched that last night. Like, oh yeah, you're right. Like when I would, because I unfortunately had to grow up in church stuff during Halloween. So I did the whole Harvest Festival. And the one thing that really bothered me for that was that you couldn't dress up as anything scary. Nothing like no zombies, no ghosts, no witches, nothing paranormal and stuff. So indeed, that's what the church did with my Christian upbringing as well. But like when we talk about, or when they talk about, Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, but that's a ghost. That's a ghost. Yeah. Dios de los Muertos is close. That's on November 1st. So he'll talk about that All Hallows Eve or All Saints Day, and November 1st and 2nd, and how their times were different back then, like how they viewed days and like what days were days, and you'll explain.
Christianity does believe that God allows a departed soul to appear in some visible form to people on earth, alongside the belief of miracles. Otherwise, the church wouldn't have saints. And so, believing in Abrahamic religion means believing in the supernatural. And this leads some members of the church to believe that the 31st of October sees an increase in demonic activity. Because that's right, demons use diaries to decide when they're going to visit the mortal realm. And so, with the church sitting squarely on both sides of the fence when it comes to Halloween, why does the festival persist in countries considered to have been Christian for so long? Well, many people believe that Halloween replaced a Gaelic festival of Samhain, which was known in pre-Christian Ireland, although this was not known elsewhere in Celtic-influenced regions, not by this name at least, although other areas of Celtic culture did celebrate the end of their year around a similar time. Anyway, Halloween has formed from the name of the celebration that is called All Hallowmas, or in modern English, All Hallows Day, a day people say is another name for All Saints Day, falling on the 1st of November. And All Souls Day, which is a date people also link to this time, which is the day after this. And so some think that the church placed these days here to replace Samhain, and so to reduce pagan celebrations and instead allow people to focus on the Christian religion instead. And so let's take this apart to see if this is what really happened. Because back in May 609, the Pope of the Roman Catholic Church at the time, a chap by the name of Pope Boniface IV, dedicated the Pantheon in Rome to the Virgin Mary and called that day All Saints Day. But about 130 years later, Pope Gregory III dedicated a specific chapel in Rome to the saints of the church and called that day All Saints Day, and that was on the 1st of November. The day after was then added All Souls Day, allowing you to pray for your departed friends and family, and particularly those in purgatory, after you had spent the day before praying for saints.
So that's where, yeah, Holly, where I agree with you too. Like that's where I feel like that's more close to it. Maybe Mexican Halloween culture is more close to the original of All Hallows Day. So I agree. And that's so cool that you were a gypsy. That's so awesome. I think being a gypsy is really neat. I like the rogue, travelers living. I just didn't like the whole letting girls get married at a really young age.
Now, the question to ask is, why would an 8th century Pope in Rome set aside a day that pagans had celebrated in Ireland before their conversion to Christianity 300 years earlier, when the Pope 100 years or so earlier didn't? Was this just a coincidence? And why did people decide to call it Halloween? Now, this choosing of a date was a coincidence, but also possibly to counter any continued pagan celebrations in Ireland. There was just no real evidence to let us know either way. But what we do know is that the new festival of All Hallowmas was adopted by the church, and we see evidence of this in the manuscript of the martyrology of Ongus de Culdee, written in Ireland in the 9th century, and which is a manuscript of saints and their feast days. And we see here, and I've put a printed version on the screen, that for the entry of the 1st of November, it says, Lonan, Colman, Cronan, with their bright sunny following, the hosts of hilarious sure multitudinous in noble stormy All Saints Day. Now, note that the original text doesn't say All Saints Day, but Samhain as the festival, and this allows us to make a supposition, and that is that Samhain was still known about after the Pope assigned All Saints Day to the 1st of November. And as Ireland had some influence in the Catholic Church, this may have not been a coincidence, but a deliberate attempt to control the events of Samhain. And this view can be further.
So even in the 9th century in Ireland, when Samhain was still known, a pope tried to cover up the more pagan traditional aspects of everything to start forcing people to be a part of the Catholic religion back then, because that was the most prominent one of that time. So this was the beginning of the church cover up of the pagan traditional All Hallows Day. They changed it to All Hallows Mass, Mass is always going to go along with, you know, drinking of the blood and of Jesus Christ and the taking of the cracker. That's what they call Mass. So obviously that was the church's efforts to try to stop people from, I guess, dabbling in a heresy.
Strengthened when you realise that this date is only chosen by the then European-focused Catholic Church, where other flavours of Christianity elsewhere, such as in Ethiopia or Syria, they've chosen other days for their All Saints' Day. But then you may ask, didn't the Catholic Church make a mistake, as Halloween is on the 31st of October, and this document clearly states the 1st of November? Well, this is where we need to understand pagan Ireland a bit more. And they didn't count the year by days, but by nights. And we know this not only through archaeological evidence, but because we also see within the manuscript by Julius Caesar on the Gaelic War, a passage which reads, "The Gauls claim all to be descended from Father Dis, declaring that this is the tradition preserved by the Druids. For this reason, they measure periods of the time not by days, but by nights. And in celebrating birthdays, the first of the month, and New Year's Day, they go on the principle that the day begins at night." And this is interesting for a few reasons, although I don't want to open the can of worms that are Druids and their beliefs today. But Father Dis is the god of death, and so there must have been some belief about the afterlife within the cultural foundations of Celtic and Gaelic life. And on top of that, the fact that feast days were celebrated from the evening before allows us to suggest that All Hallow Mass was celebrated from the evening before. And if this was replacing Samhain, then it implies that Samhain too was celebrated from the evening before. And so we have All Hallow Mass being described as All Hallows Evening, and which probably over time then became abbreviated to the festival we know as Halloween. But we also see that this nighttime focus on the start of day implies that the Gaelic peoples used a lunar moon-based calendar. And so because of the cycle of the moon not being consistent with a 365-day calendar or with a 30-day month, we can also say that Samhain was celebrated only around the time of year that was the 31st October. As we know, it's considered the end of the Gaelic year and probably acknowledging the end of the harvest period, but they would not have always celebrated it on the 31st of October because they didn't use calendars, not like we do today, but probably they celebrated on a new moon around that time. And this is an evolution from the belief that the winter solstice, which was the end of the year for the original Neolithic farmers in Europe, for their view was that the longest night aligned you as close to the dead as possible, and that from that night the days became longer again, and so you knew summer was coming and the new year started. And this is coincidentally why Stonehenge is aligned to the winter solstice, and its alignment with the summer solstice is really just coincidental, which means if you had doubts that no Druids ever built or used Stonehenge until the last 100 years, and this is doubly so for the summer solstice festival, because the festivals of the dead were in the winter. Anyway, we can see evidence of this end of year view of Samhain, as it's also mentioned in a 10th century manuscript, Tochmarc Emir, which says it is the first of the Gaelic seasonal festivals, which were called Samhain, Imbolc, Beltane, and Lochnassar. And so now we understand why and when Samhain and Halloween were. We can start understanding why things that are celebrated on this evening today are celebrated. Was Samhain all pumpkins and decorations, or an excuse for witches to party? And to help understand this, we need to find the oldest references to this festival to see what is said. And there are some documents that mention Samhain, and from this we can gain some clues as to what this day was about. However, as with most writings on the activity of traditional religions and pre-Christian culture, much of it was written by Christian scholars and monks hundreds of years after the fact, and so may be subject to bias and not wholly reflective of the truth.
There goes the church again, ruining stuff.
Which itself seems a little ironic if you consider Christians were writing it, but hey-ho. Now, I have already mentioned Ireland was converted to Christianity in the early 5th century, and we have the mention of Samhain from the 9th century, but there is a 12th century mention of Samhain, some 700 years after Ireland's conversion to Christianity. And as such, beliefs, myths, and rituals had much time to change and evolve in these years. And so we should consider this with some caution. And knowing this, then I'll read from the book called The Boyhood Deeds of Fionn. And here we find mention of Samhain in a couple of places, and these mentions say this. And please forgive any mispronunciation of Gaelic names. Finn went to Curthen, the son of Fintan, further to learn poetry with him. At that time, there was a very beautiful maiden in Brielle, That is to say, in the fairy knoll of Brielle, and the name of the maiden was Elle. The men of Ireland were at feud about that maiden. One man after another went to woo her. Every year on Samhain, the wooing used to take place, for the fairy mounds of Ireland were always open about Samhain. For on Samhain, nothing could ever be hidden in the fairy mounds. To each man that went to woo her, this used to happen. One of his people was slain. This was done to mark the occasion, nor was it ever found out who did it. And then following this, a little later, is this passage. Now, when Finn was there between them on Samhain night, he saw the two fairy mounds opened around him, even the two strongholds, their ramparts having vanished before them. And he saw a great fire in either of the
I love, like, even in Ireland back then, fairy mounds. Oh, they, the lore and the fae and all this stuff back then too, like just the imaginations and all of that. Maybe fairies were there, fairy mounds. I mean, oh, so I love these little stories like this. I'm going to mute myself so we can read.
two strongholds, and he heard a voice from one of them which said, "Is your sweet root good?" "Good indeed," said a voice in the other fairy mound. "A question then. Shall anything be taken from us to you? If that be given to us, something will be given to you in return." While Finn was there, he saw a man coming out of the fairy mound. A kneading trough was in his hand, with a pig upon it, and a cooked calf, and a bunch of wild garlic upon it. The time was Samhain. The man came past Finn to reach the other fairy mound. Finn made a cast with the spear of Fiacl Mac Cochin. He hurled it southward from him towards Slab Marge. And then, said Finn, "If the spear should reach any one of us, may he escape alive from it. I think this is a revenge for my comrade." And from this, we get the idea that fairies could cross from the other world into our realm on this day, that portals opened up, and that death could occur mysteriously if you tried to woo a beautiful woman. That'd be so if she lived in a fairy mound. And we also see fires as a motif here too, but as yet, no mention of pumpkins, ghosts, demons, or witches. Now, what is a little confusing is that some more recent books talk about other festivals, particularly Beltane, as being the festival where souls appear. The doorways open up to the other world, making it easier to talk to the dead. But the only reasonable references I see for this time of year as being such is the ritual regarding witches metamorphosizing into hares. But this modern reference of witches seems to make this a more modern motif and not one of Gaelic origin. Now, certainly with All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day being about talking to the dead, and knowing that in Samhain it was thought that portals opened to the other world, then we see a definite link here, although it still surprises me that this would have caused enough action from within the church to move the date of All Saints' Day to counter it. This portal from the other world was said to allow the dead to visit, and a more modern motif is that it is thought that the dead would visit their old home and sit down by the fire, smoke a pipe, drink some ale, and these portals would not just seem...
So more like the Day of the Dead type stuff. I mean, Dios de los Muertos. Kitty, no, what are you doing, dude? More like the Mexican Halloween culture than what we have.
To appear from fairy mounds, but also caves. And we see this in epics set at Samhain, which begin in a cave, such as the Tamor Colony. In fact, walking past such mounds or caves on the evening of Samhain was considered dangerous and risky. And this view of being able to remain in a relationship with the dead as well was an ongoing motif of Gaelic culture. But as much as the family could keep in touch with friends, it was also said that a murdered person could come back and seek revenge on these nights as well. And we see festivals at this time also include the drinking of ale, as implied by the Irish epics such as the drunkenness of the Ulstermen and the Adventure of Nura. But we also have no archaeological evidence of storage vessels for drink. And so this suggests this was a purely seasonal event. Now, there's also talk of a belief in a goddess called Caoileach, who probably is one of the oldest gods of Ireland, and almost certainly being part of the Neolithic farming culture, as she is associated with farming and the harvest. And she was seen as an old woman with one eye, but superb eyesight, one that could see for miles. And at harvest time, she is said to have turned into a hare. And there's a tradition in harvest where farmers would shout as they come towards the end of harvesting a field to drive the Caoileach into the next field. And this links to the witch turning into hares at Beltane. And so what we have today is quite a different idea of Samhain in its guise as Halloween, especially in the British Isles and America, compared to as it originally was. The respect for the dead and feasting has gone and been replaced by more modern traditions and celebrations to be happy. Initially, people would visit others' houses and pray for their dead for food, something which was known as souling, and this turned into people dressing up in disguises and costumes by the 16th century, which almost certainly then turned into the trick-or-treating we see today. And at this time, we also see turnips used as lanterns, often carved with faces on them, and these changes with time probably turned into the pumpkins we see today. The bonfires on these nights, whilst occasional, have moved dates, certainly in England to Guy Fawkes Night, a week later in the calendar, which is probably due to availability of resources to burn, and two great big bonfires a week apart may well have been considered a challenge in the Middle Ages when these festivities were growing. And eventually you've got fireworks on Guy Fawkes Night as well. And everybody much prefers fireworks to being scared by witches. So the bottom line is that despite much talk about rituals of Samhain, many cannot be proven or are wrong. Passages of tombs in Ireland align to the winter solstice and not Samhain. There is no agreed understanding on the origin of the word Samhain, and the festival was probably more formal than the partying we see today. And keep in mind that we have no remnants of religious practices being held on this day. Another reason we should be a little cautious about whether the church knew what it was doing with the moving of All Saints' Day. But this should be no surprise, as a lot of old rituals, sacred or otherwise, have been commercialised, and Samhain and Halloween are no exception. To me,
Right.
the evening...
Like, so it was pretty much whatever the area, how they celebrated the end of the harvest season for that, and the beginning of the winter solstice as well. And now we've all just turned it into our own thing. Everybody has, you know. Obviously, there are some cultures that are a little bit closer to origins in certain areas, but it's just been commercialized, like he was saying. You know, capitalism has pretty much taken over Halloween as well, too. Leave it up to good old white people. White people.
Of the antecedent new moon before the shortest day of the year, or the subsequent new moon after the autumn equinox, are probably when the old year ended and the new year started for the Gaelic culture. And so was when historically Samhain was celebrated, a festival ending the year and acknowledging the dead, which then had the superstition of fairies, the fae added to it, which then, with a large dollop of Christian influence and its calendar, turned into a celebration of the dead on the 31st of October, allowing it to remain a little distinguished from the All Saints and All Souls days. The fact that Irish epics have Samhain as their setting may have added to our belief that it was a day of the supernatural, when in fact it's just become a popular setting for fantasy stories. And we see this too with many Christian tales being set at Christmas or Easter, and certainly what we see today has no great bearing on what happened 2,000 years ago, much like Christmas or Easter or anything Christianized, and probably even many heathen traditions celebrated today as well. What we can be confident of today, though, is that Halloween and many Samhain rituals today were not practiced by our ancestors 2,000 years ago. So you want to know more about some of the things I've talked about today, I have a number of videos on the dead and the other world and other aspects.
That's really cool. So that's the origin of Halloween, as he says. Definitely explained it very, very well. I really, really like the way he talks too. He does a really good job. I mean, we can watch other ones, but like that was pretty much the shortest, decent sized one. With some really good old stuff, older stuff, getting like some of the older in there. A lot of the stuff is like very all the other stuff on YouTube is very like pictures and like where did it, like where did this come from? Where did that come from? He gets really into the nitty-gritty of like what Halloween is, how the Christians took it over way back, in Ireland at least, which is way cool. So, all right, it's 1:30. I still have to clip this up, release it on YouTube, and then take care of these damn animals, do my daily cleaning like normal, and then get ready to go on to Warren's show tonight at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern on Extra Boya YouTube. And we're going to be talking about everything Comic-Con. Anything you can think of has to do with Comic-Con stuff. So that should be fun. He talks a lot, so I just get to sit back and chill and relax and smoke my joints, enjoy it, and just listen, which is great. I I also know who else. Shane's going to be on the Chicago Corner today with Jerry. And I saw that Yona is also going to be live tonight as well. So go check out Yona on YouTube. Go give him a subscribe. Turn on the little notification bell. Same thing with Chicago Corner, Hollers Media. Definitely go check all of them out. Sorry that you couldn't get me the TikTok. That sucks. You know what's weird too is that I've been trying to download some of them to save them, and like now on certain videos I don't even get like the option to download the TikToks anymore. It's weird. What else is going on? I will be back on Monday. I don't know. I'm still trying to wake up. Those 2 B12s didn't do shit for me today. But thank you all for coming. I'm going to get out of here so I can get ready and have my day and hang out with Warren tonight. But thank you for watching all this stuff. I'm going to pull up Amber's on Monday. Okay, cool. So, and go stop this dog from whining as well. So go check out Warren tonight. Check out Yona today. Check out Shane on Chicago Corner. Keep an eye out for all of us. It's Friday. It's the weekend. A lot of us are going on live. I know that Warren is also going to be on live again tomorrow night as well at the same time as he's going on tonight with me. So I believe that is it. Yeah. All right. I'm going to go take care of my shit. And I will see you all over on Extra Boya tonight. Thanks. Bye.